Hello and welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined as always by Matt and Chad. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Oh,
Doing good.
I'm sure I could find something to complain about if I worked at it.
Well,
Okay.
I have
Chad with the half glass empty attitude.
I think that is a half full thing. I just have to find the thing to complain about.
my one dog decided she would like to get sprayed by a skunk over the weekend, so my house has been very, very, very smelly. Because if you've never smelled like freshly skunked animal, it's just terrible.
I never have, because where I'm at is not rural enough to have skunks. I don't even know if there's skunks. Maybe there's skunks in the Northern Virginia area. I don't know that there are. I remember like as a child, like travel, like my family's from the South, and we'd make the long drive down to Augusta, Georgia. I remember sometimes I would smell what I presume was a skunk, because it was like a real like nasty smell. So driving down, like you drive down, like it's summer, you drive down with the windows. It's like you smell. What is the hell is that smell? And it's although maybe this is, I don't know if they're the same. I think they're the same animal. Maybe not. But my parents would be like, "Oh, someone like hit a polecat."
Yeah, that's the same thing.
What the hell is a polecat?
It's referring.
Is it the same, or is it just like a?
No, it's
is it like a different type?
It's
I think skunks are like from the.
No,
it's
just a
from the weasel family.
It's just a slang term. The pole is just the stripe.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But
have you ever like actually interacted with the skunk? I never have.
Yeah, they can be pretty sociable. I went to an animal sanctuary and they had one, and it was pretty chill.
So yeah, I've never experienced one, but in some places in America, like some states, you can have them as pets.
Yeah, you can have them in Ohio.
So if you're going to have a skunk as a pet, you can get them. They don't have the, that where their scent glands are removed.
Yeah.
And the in doing so, what you have is actually a super chill animal. The biggest thing you have to worry about is the way that they play is they nip, and they have really strong jaws.
Oh.
So you just make sure they don't nip at your teeth or nip at your toes, because they have enough bite force to break your toe. But other than that, they're pretty chill animals, and they eat yellow jackets.
Oh, I've actually heard that that the software of a skunk, the operating software is basically cat-like. I've heard that they're very cat-like. I don't know what that means though. I mean, cats can be playful and social, but cats can also be very aloof. So I don't know if they're like that. They're not like dogs. I don't think there's very few. Unless you're a dog.
Even if you have like a skunk, they're not. There's a difference between like they're not domesticated, so like they're still gonna be wild to an extent. So they're probably still gonna be aloof.
Are they destructive? Like,
they can be.
They
like their junk food, and I think they will get into it.
They like to dig.
Yeah.
The thing
they like
I've
tapers and stuff, I think. So
I've again, because I like sometimes I've gotten in the course of my life, gotten into weird tangents where I could I hit this wild? It is clearly wild animals. Pet. And I looked up and I actually did research like raccoons. Because in some place you can have like a raccoon as a pet, and almost everything I've read, it's like, we don't recommend it. It's not because raccoons are naughty little creatures necessarily, mean-spirited. They actually, when you get them if you can get them as pets, you can kind of semi-domesticate them. They actually they can be very lovable creatures, but the problem that I heard is that they're high energy. I think they're also like, I forget the term for it, but I think they're most active, like at dusk or dawn. So yeah, they're going to be active and when you might be winding down from work. But the biggest thing was they're smart. They're really smart. They also have little hands, obviously, that are really good at manipulating, because there's a lot of little joints in there.
Yeah.
So if if you're gonna like be like, all right, little raccoon pet buddy, like I'm gonna go out to work my 8-hour shift and come back because they need to be stimulated. If you don't provide enough stimulation for them, they will stimulate themselves, which means you
Yeah.
come home and like your entire house is destroyed. And it's just like, what? Like I was bored, and I'm like, it just is doing what it does.
Yeah,
So,
pigs.
They're
Are,
very curious animals.
pigs are the same
Yeah.
way. You need to stimulate them. But if you've ever smelled like one hit by the side of the road, magnify that by about 100. Like it's terrible.
That's
like,
alive.
You can't.
That's the lives, man.
Like you, it's actually hard to diagnose what smells because everything smells. Like it just
Everything smells.
it
It just
like
overrides.
and like food tastes like skunk. Like it just
Yeah.
So, the way that I learned about skunk stuff is a former boss of mine had a buddy who had a skunk as a pet, and that's how I found out about the way that they nip, and that's how they play and everything. Well, the amusing part was, because he's got this skunk, and this skunk is, he's friendly and he's cuddly and he's really chill and all that sort of stuff. And then someone broke into his house once, and he had a camera in his house. Someone broke in, and then the skunk hears someone coming in, so he just waddles his way down the hall, and he turns the corner, and this guy sees a skunk in the house, and turned and jumped right back out the window he had pried open before he could do anything. And I was just like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
if you're ever. And the other thing is, tomato juice does not work. You have to use peroxide and baking soda. That's what you use, with a little bit of like dish washing soap, a little touch. of that.
Blue Dawn.
Yeah,
Blue Dawn, the cure for everything.
Yeah, it was like a quart of it was a quart of peroxide. I think like a fourth of a cup of baking soda, and then like a teaspoon and a half of Dawn. And she still smells a little bit because you can't get their head too well, but it does.
Yeah.
It does a miracle on the rest, and I've been airing the house out for 3 days, so it's getting there slowly but surely. But she decided she decided to roll around on furniture and stuff when she came in.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that's been a process. I think you can put baking soda on the furniture and then like vacuum it off, and that helps. But
well, I can tell you the first treatment that came to mind for me was kill it with fire, but I guess if you don't want to burn the couch, that's a way to go.
yeah, there's been a lot of laundry done too.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
So we have for the show tonight, we are doing a spotlight on Barry Windham. We have a nice little array of good matches tonight, but we have a couple of quick side topics. This is more just a quick note, I would say, but if you haven't watched this week, there's been some videos of Diamond Dallas Page working with Lex Luger. I think he got him to stand up under his own power, I think.
Luger is now able to get out of his wheelchair unassisted. And dude, that is amazing.
So I've not seen Lex Luger in person, like since he was wrestling. Like when I was a young kid, I remember like I probably went to a couple shows in like the NWO era. Sorry, I would have saw him then, but not like a convention or anything like that. So is he in like a wheelchair, or is he?
Yeah, he can't. So if you because Chad and I saw him when we went to that convention about what, like 4 years ago now. Yeah. So he's in a wheelchair, and then his hands don't work so well. So if you go up to him, he like puts the pen in like one hand and like signs it.
Hang on, I can kind of, because his hand is kind of in a place like this, so he sticks the pen in it this way and signs that way.
Is it kind of frozen?
Yeah, kind of.
It's kind of like he kind of has like Bob Dole with his pen. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. So he can't really open it past that. He would take the the pen and shove it in there and then sign that way.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah, like because if like when we saw Magnum TA, like he goes around on like a big scooter, but he gets out of it to like sit down and stuff. I think the scooter's just easier for
Yeah.
navigating, but I think Magnum TA has like limited mobility, but like Luger never got out of the wheelchair.
Not while we were there.
Because like I think I went to the bathroom when he was in there, and he was like doing like his whole wheelchair thing, and I almost asked if he needed help, and I'm like, well, no, like he obviously knows what he's doing, but like
Yeah.
it's a whole.
I mean, offering to help, it's one of those things where it's like, where is the line? You know, what would be the good thing to offer here or not?
I
And
struggle with
that's
that in cases like that because, like, sometimes when you're in that situation, you figured out how to do it yourself, and sometimes like you're kind of robbing them of like
of
their
their autonomy. Yeah.
yeah, and their pride a bit. So like, and I kind of think like if I was in those shoes, like I'd be like, no, I'm good, I can do it myself. Just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I'm like helpless. Like, so I struggle with that. Like, unless like it's obvious like someone needs help, I kind of just don't just be just because like I said, I don't want to be insulting about it.
Yeah, it's hard. Because making the offer is not saying it's not that I don't think you can't do it. I just wanted to make the offer in case it would make life a little easier for you.
Yeah, but like I know how I am as a person, and like if I was in that situation, I I don't necessarily I would know where they're coming from, but like for me, it'd be like, no, like this is like
I got it.
yeah, like you can't, like please just don't take it away from me.
So to answer Vectron's question from chat, I don't remember specifically
It
how
was a
far it was
stroke.
after at after what happened with Elizabeth, but he had a spinal stroke. Um, and just I don't know the details on beyond that, but he had a spinal stroke. It really, really screwed up everything, basically. And so he, he has doing that apparently gave him a big, oddly enough, gave him a big perspective shift. And
He kind of like embraced like the fans in his career to a certain extent after that. Like
yeah, he is like, okay, so we said Brad and I went and saw him. And whenever I go and see people, unless it's something in particular, I don't get autographs. I get a picture with them, right? Because number one, if I get an autograph, it's not going to be a question like, are you going to resell this? And like, no, I'm getting a picture with you. Like,
yeah.
this is specifically a picture with you. There's no question. And to me, it feels more personal. So what I did is I knelt down and I talked to him a little bit and told him how much I appreciated his work and how much I loved his 97 run. And man, it was like trying to give him a compliment about that run. He was like, it was a spot that needed to be filled. And I was like, no, sir. No, sir. There was not anybody else there that could do that the way that you did it. That was hugely important. He goes, it just needed to be done. I'm like, sir, I am trying to compliment you right now, sir. Would you please accept a compliment from me? He's like, well, and you're killing me, dude. And then, I was having a very bad leg day. Like my knee was
We were
was
standing on
absolutely
cement
killing
for
me.
a really long time.
We were, and I had a walking stick with me because my knee was just screaming. And so I take my cane, pull it over, and I go to push myself up. Lex Luger in his chair, as immobile as he is, leans over with his hands and gets my other arm to help me get up. Like, that's... I didn't expect that. I didn't. I even said, I'm like, oh, sir, that's very kind of you. You didn't need to. And he goes, oh, man. No, you were very nice to me. So I was like, all right. Because there had been scuttlebutt before that Lex had been a bit of a pill, and during his addiction period, and like really pushed people away, and pissed people off and that sort of thing.
I still laugh because like when we were there, like ODB showed up and like Billy Gunn like literally like abandoned his table to run over and say hi to her.
Took off running.
There was
He
like
went
a little
over to give
smoke.
ODB a big hug.
There was like a smoke outline left of him.
And it's not that ODB is. When I say this, you got to understand. I am not saying ODB's a big. ODB was like a walking brick in female form, which you don't see it all that often. So it was actually kind of cool.
Well, especially when like Gail Kim and like Angelina Love were there, and like they were very like. I think Gail Kim had lost like muscle mass, but we were standing near her. I was like, wow, like you're very, very tiny.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
very, like very. I don't even know how. Like very tiny. So was Angelina Love. Like she was. It was kind of like, wow, how did you do this and not like destroy yourself?
Mm.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, props, good going Lex, and then
He helped he helped Butterbean walk again. Or stand upright.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, that's a name I haven't heard in like a long time. Butterbean. I didn't know that Butterbean had like mobility issues.
Yeah.
I mean, he was very I won't do the
Big.
joke. I won't do the joke.
So Butterbean, I saw him a number of years ago at a, horror conventions are weird because they'll bring in a bunch of folks from the horror genre, but then they'll also bring in anybody else to fill out the celebrity panel stuff. And Butterbean was there, and it's like, dude, like I knew Butterbean was a big dude. You see him in the ring, but then I saw him there, and I was like, ooh, wow, that's that post-ring life caught up to him.
Yeah, I think he had let himself go even past that. He was interesting though. I liked his appearance on Dark Side of the Ring was interesting.
That was the brawl for all.
Yeah, because he had no illusions about why he was there. Because he's like, oh yeah, they just fed him to me like on a silver platter.
They did. They absolutely did. They did him dirty as hell.
Because they wouldn't even let him do like takedowns or anything. Because they got mad. They got all pissy that he beat Dr. Death.
What were you saying, Matt?
Looking him up. Well, he's 58 now, so he's older. But I guess at one point his weight had ballooned up to 515 pounds. That's real big.
Yeah.
There's some more recent photos where he's older. He's almost 60. I mean, I'd actually argue he looks older than 58. Like he looks older than
he looks hard lived.
And he's still kind of a big guy, but the pictures I'm seeing, if he was once 550, it's like he's I would say he's easily under 300. He's not 200, but I mean he's a bigger guy, but I mean he's still like looks remarkably better than 550. Like I don't know he had the health issues, but look, I think it's, I know that you don't want to body shame people, but it's like your body isn't really meant to be that big, so you do have a lot of health and mobility issues when you can start getting that big. So
sad thing is he still was 200 pounds under Yokozuna, that show we watched.
Oh yeah. Just in general, like I wanted to talk about the Lex Luger DDP thing, just because it's another kudos that I just want to give DDP, because how many people is it now the DDP has basically been trying to rescue and improve their quality of life. It's a lot, and I am not a cynical person to think that he's just doing this because I want to get DDP yoga out there. It's like, no, like how he had people like Scott Hall and Jake Roberts like live with him for a time. It's the amount of money and effort that he has to have spent out on those two and other people
Yeah.
It's like you're not making billions of dollars on DDP yoga. Hopefully he's making like a good amount. He's living comfortably, but you're spending a lot of money getting these people sober and helping them.
Well, I think
And at this point,
even like the Butterbean thing, I think Butterbean put that out. I don't think DDP really advertised that one heavily.
yeah, no, I think at this point, like I will literally fight anyone. I'll fight anyone who wants to say that it's not just because DDP is a good guy. Like, if it's not even just doing it because like, oh, this person's like hurting, they're out, down on their luck, like let me help them out. Even if it's not just that basic level, it's if he just wants to be like, hey, these ex wrestlers, like I want to get back like to them. He obviously knew Scott Hall from like
Oh yeah.
back into like the AWA, like the 80s, but I'm sure just is like, look, these guys, like we're a family, we're part of the business, like I got to help them out. But I think it's more than that. I mean, you've seen testimonies from people. It's like I think he's just a good dude. I think this is something. There is a type of person, and I feel like they're rare, but they do feed off. They feed off things. And one of the things that these people are like they feed off helping people.
Yeah.
And it's not, maybe it's self-serving only in respect. It's like, oh, I love helping people. It makes me feel good about myself and that I've made a contribution to the world. And it's like, if that's your high, like more power to you. Like that's a much better high than, let me go shoot up drugs or something.
The idea of someone hating on someone because they're like, no, man, it's like, why do you do it? It's like, man, it's something that I feel like I should do, and it feels good to do it. And it's like, oh, so you just do it for yourself. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
I'm big on the.
Maybe also.
I'm big on the. I don't really care if there's no like. If it's not like if there's no strings attached. We're not talking about something like, oh, we'll do this, but you have to do that kind of altruism that we see. But like, I really don't care like. If like even if you're just doing something for like a YouTube video and you give like a homeless guy money or like take him to lunch or something, people are like, oh, well, you're just doing that for clout. Like the homeless guy doesn't care.
Who is directly affected by it?
Yeah.
That one person.
But like I don't care. I don't care about that. Like I don't care if you're just doing it because you're getting a tax break. Like you're still doing it.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that a little bit on the show. He's gotten into a lot of problematic things, but if you look at someone like Mr. Beast, who I still have never seen a Mr. Beast video in my life, but if Mr. Beast is going to be like, we're going to go to this like African town and build them a well so they have clean water, and it's like he does a video and someone just like, oh, look at like asshole, you like look at this video you monetize, you made like $5 million like from this video, and it's like, okay, but how about that village in Africa? Did they get their well? Well, yeah. Is it working? Yeah. Do they have clean water? Yeah. Okay. I mean, if Mr. Beast actually did all that stuff he was going to say he was going to do and help these people's lives, and maybe he made a little bit of money on the ad revenue doing that, it's like, I'll take that as a wash. Like,
Yeah.
But that's, he's maybe a problematic example. I just used him to be.
No. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that because as a, that is a discussion that I got into, and my answer on that was, well, if he does all that and he just makes money off of it, it's like, well, what does he do with the money off of that one? Yeah, he does like these stupid gimmick challenge videos, but then what has he turned around and done?
His problems and like where his unethicalness comes from is very, what I would say is devoid. Like is very like that stuff is one thing, but like where he gets into the unethical things are more business practices, not like the actual content. Like
like signing his name to some stuff without doing due diligence,
and like
makes him look like an idiot.
Illegal lotteries, like promoting gambling to children, like stuff like that is where he gets into trouble. And like some of the others and some of the contests being fake, but like that doesn't really affect the like if he does something good. I don't think.
Yeah, the first time the only thing of his I ever really saw was he did he did a video with Mark Rober, who is an engineer on YouTube, and what they were doing is the idea was who can clean up the most trash in, I don't know if it was South America or somewhere in the Caribbean, one of the two. And so Beast had flown a bunch of people in, and they were on the ground picking stuff up. And Rober, what he was basically doing is he's doing a commercial for one of these, basically these boats that go through and then they cycle off. They'll process water through and then cycle out all the trash of it. And so he's doing this promotion for this nonprofit that's like, hey, you know, let's get crap out of the water. That sounds pretty good, right? And it's like, you know, I'm not going to hate on that. So what? They monetized it and then turned around and put money into other things. Like, from everything I've been able to find, and I will confess to not looking all that hard because the level of which I care is not that big, but it seems like he does not live a lavish life. He just kind of got a bunch of money. What am I going to do with it? And turns around and, you know, does stuff. The thing that really pissed me off was getting on board with the damned Pauls and getting into crypto shit. And it's okay.
They all get into that. Oh, and his candy bar sucks ass, so we can hold that against him.
Yeah.
Mr. Beast?
Yeah, Feastables are his candy bar. They're not good.
I haven't tried them.
Yeah.
No, they're not good.
But
if you want like those like $1 bars you can get for like charity at work that are pretty decent. They're just like a generic one they sell for anything you can get like in the crisp or the almond. Think of those, except they're not good and they're totally terrible. And that's what a Feastable is. Devoid of anything that's good.
So, but
I'm really particular about my candy bars. Like I don't really eat candy bars that often. But if I do, I really only prefer like certain ones. Like I love Butterfinger.
Yeah.
You know, I love a Reese's or something, but I don't just eat like a lot.
I will die on the hill. The superior Reese cup is the Reese egg. That is the top tier Reese cup. It has the best chocolate to peanut butter ratio. None of the other shapes are as good. The tree and the heart are close, but the egg is the best version of the Reese cup.
And they have them. They're starting to have them now.
Yeah, they're already in the stores. Yeah, so they're the best.
They are pretty good. What about the ghost or the pumpkins that come out at?
No, they're not as good. The ratio is not. There's a specific thing about the egg. The chocolate to peanut butter ratio is perfect, and no other.
It's pretty on point.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Nothing else, because like the regular cup is like they did something, and that it's way off kilter to the ratio, and some other ones get close. Like I think the pumpkin isn't bad, and the tree and the heart are okay, but they're just not quite to the level of the.
My wife holds the opinion that the non-standard Reese's cups are superior to the regular ones.
I will tell you what's an underrated gem that I don't know if they have anymore, but when they were doing the Reese's cup with the Reese's Pieces in it, those were outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my reaction. Yeah. They were a problem. They were a problem.
Real laugh hiding real pain.
Yes. So then our other topic was these would be obscure finishers. So these would be finishers that only like one or two people have ever used. Maybe it's something lost to the annals of history.
Or you don't see it much.
Yeah.
Like overall obscure is kind of top tier, but then just people not straight up not using it kind of I think would also fit.
Or you watch like something from like the 90s, like why has no one stolen that move?
Okay, that the whole genesis of this for me came when Brad had pitched talking about the Luger thing. So I'm like, why is there nobody today I can think of who's using the torture rack as a finish? Why do I not see anybody using the Human Torture Rack as a finish right now? It's a spectacular visual. It was the most over move of like the '90s. You walked around. If you walked down the hallway at school, you didn't see someone hitting somebody with a stunner. It's just all of a sudden somebody's up in the air for a torture rack.
You know who did a variation of that wasn't a finisher, but someone should steal his win. Abyss was doing the torture rack drop. I loved when he did that.
Wasn't that Nikki Bella's original finish that screwed her neck up?
Maybe. God, I'd hate to see her try to do that. But when Abyss did it, it was so cool. Like the way he got that nice bounce off the shoulders on guys and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They should bring that back. Someone should bring that back.
I was gonna say, like, they should have had Chris Masters do that. That would have been better than the full Nelson.
So I was gonna actually say, like, if you have a really strong dude, like, I actually don't mind the full Nelson. And actually, I think that they actually got it over with Chris Masters when they did the whole Master Lock thing, because they actually wrestling could be so simple sometimes. It's just take a move, protect it, and then have people sell for it, and it's like, oh, it got over. It's like, yeah, of course it got over. Like, if you actually protect something and you treat it like as legitimate, like, people will get into it. What's a good? I think people should bring. You need a big dude. Like, I don't know who would fit. And
I got a name for you.
Okay.
Powerhouse Hobbs.
Oh yeah, he could. What is his finisher?
I think he's been using that spine buster as his finisher.
Spine buster.
Which, no complaints. It's a fantastic spine buster.
I think Miro could have pulled it off at one point in his career. Like, in the WWF, I don't think AEW it would have been an appropriate move for him necessarily.
Chad.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a clip. Saw someone posted on wrestling Twitter in the last couple of days, and I remember this. This is like from like '93 WCW, maybe like a Street Fight or something like that. But it was Ron Simmons in a match against Big Van Vader, and Ron Simmons. I think the reason why I say I think it was a street fight is because Ron Simmons had like jeans and like the elbow pads over the jeans, whatever. But
yeah,
like Vader runs. And Ron Simmons like picks him up for a spine buster, but he doesn't do like the arm like running, and he doesn't even drop his knees. He just picks him up for the spine buster, and with one hand, Chuck throws him down.
Yes.
And look, I love Vader. Vader's like a 400-pound dude, like,
yeah.
and was always a monster. And Ron Simmons just like, and it's that kind of just goes to like my love for Ron Simmons, that I've appreciated him now. Dude, the show is like, damn, man, like, why didn't y'all, both WCW and WWF, it's like, why didn't you do more with this guy? Like, this guy was like your big, like,
the dude, right?
Pardon the I guess the joke here, but he was your white meat babyface. That you could have like really, I mean, I was world champion briefly, but it's like you really could have done something with this guy. Like, he was good enough, like, over, you could talk. Like, I was into him, so I don't know.
I feel like to work with Vader, you had to be pretty strong. But I think if you were strong enough to pick him up, I think you'd be shocked by how easy Vader probably went up for stuff.
It would not surprise me if that was the case, because Vader was stiff as hell, but he was also a professional. So
I mean, he was doing like sunset flips and stuff, and.
So, hey, Matt, I love the Ron Simmons spine buster. Like, you referencing that, I think that just kind of became how he did spine busters.
Wasn't that just the Dominator in the WWE?
Dominator,
no,
got wrench lift up onto the shoulder and then drop onto your face. Which
I do love the story.
Actually a good move. Like, I think more people should, or someone should really prominently put that out.
I do love the story. I think D'Lo or Mark Henry told it. But how he killed Ahmed Johnson's heat in the WWE because Ahmed injured him, and he came back and he just literally, like, their first match back, he just beat his ass in front of everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Killed his heat.
Yeah, I think it was D'Lo, because D'Lo said like Ron Simmons even said, even himself, he was like, yeah, like, I'm gonna take that guy out.
Yeah,
I think I've said several times in the show before. I believe it was Mark Henry, because they used to like ride together back in the Nation days, but. He said that Ron, they go into the gym and Ron would be like in jeans, would take his shirt off, like do like just a set of some ungodly amount of weight because he was just like strong as hell. Like even like Mark Henry, a former Olympian in weightlifting, was like, no, dude, Ron's like legit, like crazy strong. He would just do it, sit down, take out like his afro pick, like fluff his hair a little bit, do another set, like not even like break a sweat and stop and be like, hey Mark, all right, let's go get breakfast. And it's like, damn.
You know who?
Yeah.
You know who?
That's a strong dude.
You know who Ron's a mark for? Because when he grew up, his grandma was super into wrestling. So like, yeah, we go over there and you had to watch wrestling. And Bullet Bob was like God in his grandma's house. So he's like a Bullet Bob mark. And he talks about, he's like, yeah, like, you know, I was growing up, like, you know, like Junkyard Dog, like Ernie Ladd, like Dusty, you know, Bullet Bob. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a Bullet Bob mark.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. The Dominator, fantastic looking. I mean, the Dominator's basically the Rochambeau is a Dominator, but with the underhook lift as opposed to the gut wrench lift. But my takeaway on that damn move is just that it absolutely smashes your testicles if anything is slightly off. You know, think about how you come down that rotation forward. And if you do flatten out and land on your stomach without tucking your knees in properly, it's a real ball breaker.
Yeah.
That's why I told someone once, he was like, yeah, I use the TKO as a finish. I'm like, that's awesome, dude. I would like to do something else with you because I really, really hate taking that move. And he's like, all right, you take a super kick? And I went, gladly.
You mentioned like a TKO would actually be like a really good like move to bring back. Was it submission? What was that? Was it?
No, it was Marvin's carry into the.
No, I know what it is.
It was an ace.
My question was like the premise of this segment, was it like underrated?
Whatever.
Oh, underrated, whatever. Okay, not
underrated
just like
finishes. Yeah,
not submission moves, just necessarily.
You know, I think the problem with bringing that back is, especially on the indie scene, like you're kind of just gonna instantly be like, they're gonna instantly start comparing you to like a Lesnar knockoff, because I think like the F5 has become so synonymous. Like
F5 goes this way.
Well, I
TKO
mean,
goes this way.
Yeah, but I think though, like you could get considered to be like derivative, I think.
Well, it's just everybody's doing a damn cutter nowadays.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
And it kind of got killed. I think that version kind of got killed because like everyone was doing that in like the mid 2000s for a while, like not as a finisher, but as like a. And the other problem I think with it,
move,
and it turned into like one of those ones like where, you know how like Sean Waltman always had that where he went to do like the rocker dropper and he always got countered. Like it turned into that everyone went for that and everyone always landed on their feet and went into like the next thing. Like it just.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Matt? What you have in mind?
I feel like I've kind of turned this from like obscure to just like finishing moves or moves that don't really get used enough anymore, or I really think are cool and people should bring back. So, that probably is a ton. I could give me like a minute. I'll think of more, but two that I guess three that I really liked. These are kind of like these two are basically variations, kind of the same thing, but I kind of wish people would bring back like a Michinoku driver or a Northern Lights bomb. Both things where it's like you can, basically the premise is you're dropping a guy on its head.
There's a couple of Joshi girls.
Do it in a way where you're like protecting the head and neck.
Yeah.
It just visually looks like you're really.
There's a couple of Joshi girls that do the Michinoku driver. I think even a Tokyo Joshi Pro girl does it.
I think so, but I forget who.
Eddie Kingston.
My only complaint
was using the Northern Lights.
Where I'm going to go against you on the Northern Lights bomb is I'm against it because no one's going to do it as cool as Tenryu does it. So what's the point? Because Tenryu's was like just awesome.
That's true. I was thinking because how much I love Tenryu, so that's I'm like, someone should like steal that. But another one that
Matt, I was going to say Eddie Kingston was using the Northern Lights bomb. He had the Hurricane, the Northern Lights bomb, or the high stack power bomb that he was using to finish matches. So I was like, yeah, you get that Northern Lights bomb sometimes.
How
Mhm.
about some old tag finishers? You know, it's an
Wait, hang on.
underused one.
Matt had one he wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
hit. I want to hear.
Uh, I love the STF, like the old school the STF.
Yeah.
Um, no one for a long time has been able to use it because Cena took it, so it became like the STFU, and it's like, no, I'm not hating on the guy, but I thought his was like, and then it became like, well, no, I can't use that because like at this point, like the biggest star in wrestling is using it, so
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you
I
were
know
gonna
it looked
say
derivative.
like, your chiropractor locks something in like
Mm,
that harder than Cena does.
mm,
Yeah, he did. He never cranked that back.
Well, it kind
mm.
of got double fucked because Cena was using it in North America, but then you had Chono using it forever in Japan. So it's like you've had two kind of iconic workers take it, so like no one's wanted to.
Wasn't it supposed to be a move that Luthez created and taught to
Probably he
Chono?
invented like
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Luthez invented the power bomb.
Yeah, he did.
It's called the throwing pile driver.
I think I found video of
I,
him doing it.
Hmm.
I don't know if we talked about this before. Thoughts on your regular pile driver? I'm not even gonna throw the tombstone. Townsville use the tombstone. Thoughts on a regular pile driver
Hmm.
versus the old school like Terry Funk Harley race where it's like I'm gonna grab you like by your trunks and just like fall
Oh,
backwards.
the
I feel
stump
like
puller.
The
I
stump
feel
puller,
I
yeah.
feel like that's kind of just the box pile drivers just become a variation of that to a degree. But I tend to
Mm,
like the stump puller. I don't think's bad. I miss the jumping pile driver that Savage did.
mm.
So that your classic jumping pile driver was the one that I was never going to take. If someone had wanted to do a stump puller, I would have rolled with that. But I was not taking a classic pile driver because I did not trust anybody
What if
to do that one to me
what if you
properly.
were? I know you say like I know you wouldn't take it from most people. Well, let's say you were working a match with Lawler and he wanted to give you the pile driver. Would you agree to it then?
How could I say no to Jerry Lawler wanting to do that, right?
I'm kind
Like,
of thinking like, well, like if one person can do this, like he's done it to like 5,000 people and never injured anyone.
yeah,
So like I'll
yeah.
just.
It's one of
Mm.
those things. So no, I can't say no to Jerry Lawler for it, but
How about the snowplow from Old Al Snow?
that was a Northern Lights bomb, wasn't it?
I think it was a little different.
I think it's the same concept though.
It was a little variation on
Can I,
it.
can I,
Or
slight
the
tangent.
yeah, go ahead.
Since both were name dropped, we didn't even talk about it on the show, but just what you shared with us, it was like the Savage versus Tenru match. It was
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
damn, that was a good match. And that only goes to show that I said before, like because he was it when like the brief, um,
That was SWS and they had a working
yeah,
relationship with WWE because
it,
there's like a couple year span where there's some real because that's where Tenta and Katawe happened on one of those shows, but you had some real
yeah,
interesting matches come out of those.
yeah, and that was SWS. Then I think SWS became like
War,
War.
yeah,
Yeah,
it did.
but yeah, they had a brief working relationship. So you got not like a million, but you got a couple like really interesting matches. It wasn't you had Savage Tenru. Was it also like Hogan versus Tenru or something like that? You got some
And you got
interesting
Tenryu in
stuff.
the WWF because he showed up for
Yeah.
Mania, and he was also involved in, oddly, because I don't know if he was working there, but he was involved in that massive clusterfuck where they like 5 million people attacked the Undertaker, and he ascended to the rafters at like the
Yeah,
Royal
yeah,
Rumble. Like he was involved
yeah,
in that.
yeah. He was
Oddly,
involved in that. But that match between Tenru and Savage was awesome, and Savage had a couple like Japanese matches in like the early '90s, and I shared before like offline with us, and it's like Savage had been working the WWF, but like that brought like the old like Memphis Savage out, and I just like a run in like early '90s Japan, New Japan, but even especially like All Japan from Savage would have been like fucking crazy. Like he would have been balls to the wall because this match he did with Tenryu was like he was going all out. Like he was, it was good. So I don't know. Like that would have been one of those, to me, like one of those what ifs.
I
Like
kind
if
of
he had
feel
just
like
left WWF.
I kind of feel like to get the most out of Savage in Japan, you need like an FMW run or something, like an Onita match or something like that.
He needs some exploding cages.
Yeah.
Savage Funk.
So I have quite a
In
few
a
tag ones.
Barbed wire match against Onita, Leatherface.
Yeah.
I feel like tag matches are where like you really don't see those finishers anymore. Like even like something simple like the rocket launcher, you don't see a ton anymore as a standard one.
Who do I have seen? I saw someone in AEW use the rocket launcher to finish a match, and I can't remember for the life of me.
Vegomatic, which is a personal favorite of mine.
You're gonna have to remind me which one that is.
That is like the Bobby Eaton one. I think it's like he does the leg drop off the top.
Into.
I think they're holding him. It's kind of like the demolition.
Oh, yeah, because the Smoking Guns did that too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's very obscure, but the Buff Bagwell Scott Norton, where they kind of did the Doomsday Device, except that was the blockbuster off of Norton's shoulders.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I love that. That's
It's still obscure, but I think FTR uses it quite a bit. But the Spike Pile Driver has always been a favorite of mine.
FTR loves that spot.
Yeah,
Like it would have to, like, of people who are working today, it would have to be like in the fantasy world where I'm wrestling again. It would have to be like Dax, who's like, "Yeah, man, we'll get that pile driver in there." And movie like, "All right, man, listen, just understand, I'm protective of my neck, so I'd you know,
I
you're
feel like
professional and everything. It just, it just, can we please just, yeah, I got you." It'd be one of those conversations.
I feel like the Spike Pile Driver is probably like the least terrible way to take it, other than like a tombstone.
So, in terms of the way that you're supposed to work a pile driver properly, it's more apparent with the tombstone. You're just kind of reversing which direction you do with the momentum, but
I feel like with the Spike, there's so much going on around you that if you need to cheat it, you can kind of like cheat it a little bit on taking the bump.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of motion.
Follow you.
There's a lot of motion going around, so if like you kind of like get your arm, where you might get spotted doing some stuff like on a standard pile driver, you can probably cheat a little bit with a Spike.
The ones that have worried me the least were the over the shoulder, like the Rikishi drivers and stuff like that. Because, I mean, let's be honest, you're hanging down the front of the guy, but where's the impact really happen? It's happening at your waistline. Like, you're probably not reaching the mat whenever it comes to do that. Sorry, Secrets of the Ring exposed or something.
Has anyone done the Vertebreaker in a long time?
It used to be all the rage on like the aughts on like the indie scene.
Yeah. I don't think anyone does it either. Christian's old finisher, it's kind of like the reverse Scorpion Death Drop, except you like do it reverse, then you take your arm like and
that Dragon Sleeper DDT.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really does that a lot.
Other than him,
I think Big Show did it for a while too.
A Big Show, I don't. Maybe. I remember Big Show had the hog log, where he'd pull you where you're bending backward and then drape the leg over your body and then drop everything straight down. And Hurricane had his Eye of the Hurricane, where he holds you like it's an inverted DDT, but then swings the arm around
Yeah,
like it's a
that's what-
lariat and just kind of drops. So
That's what I
he and
thought.
Big Show both did do that, and that's a super safe. It's as basic a bump as you can take with some movement going on around it. And so, there are moves that I think are great finishes that I'm surprised other people haven't used, but then
Pump
they're being
handle
used
slam.
consistently. No, not even that, because I think that's what Rhea Ripley's using. The one that surprises me is the Dustin Rhodes. He used to call it the final cut. I don't remember what he calls it now, but his suplex lift rollover neck breaker.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think that's a fantastic visual.
There's
I think it's
Isn't that a
amazing.
sidewinder? No, that's not a sidewinder suplex.
But
has a
I
name.
cannot. Yeah, like I said, it used to be called Final Cut, but it looks fantastic, and all of the movement for that is the person who is giving you the move. So you're just taking a basic bump, which is fantastic. I love that. But no one else is going to use Dustin's move. So, Matt, did you have any others? Because we were going to talk about this, and all of a sudden I vapor locked.
Ooh, Buddy Landell's elbow drop.
The corkscrew elbow.
Yeah, the corkscrew. I love that.
No, I can't really think of anything more necessarily.
You said STF. I knew there was something in my head. That used to be Jack Perry's finish. The snare trap was an STF
Yeah,
finish.
that is true. I forgot about that.
And I really liked it. I really liked how he did it. I really liked how I thought it was a great finish. And I don't think anybody ever just straight up broke their way out of it on TV.
I did think of one. And again, it's just like it's more from like obscure too. Like, oh, I like that move. Like, I wish people would use it more, or I wish it would come back. I think I saw Big Bill using this. I don't know if he uses a finisher, but I just love like a boss man slam or the black hole slam from Abyss. Like, if done really well, and both of those guys did it well, like it can be really, really cool.
There was from like 2008 to like 2013 on the Indies, like every guy over 6 feet tall did the black hole, because Brody Lee did it for a while. I don't know if he did it in WWE.
Brad,
What?
I'm feeling very called out right now. Okay.
I think no, Brody Lee did it in WWE too. So I think he did it up through everything.
Yeah, but it's a great move, and like you said, Abyss really took that to another level with the way he did it.
Well, especially, I mean, I don't mean to call you out because it's easy if you're on the Indies and you're a little bigger, because like those little guys, you can fucking murder them without like hurting them on a black hole slam.
So, funny story, true story. It wasn't a black hole slam, but it was in my last run. I was doing a match, and finally everybody had shut the hell up about doing spine busters. And so I'm like, oh God, I can finally do a spine buster. So I go to do it, and the dude I was doing it to was not a big dude. He charged full bore into me fast enough that whenever he came at me, I went to bring him up, and he was going fast enough, he went over my shoulder. And so I'm just like, well, okay, we're doing this. And I hooked the back of his legs and went to bring him down into a spine buster, and just wham, spiked the shit out of him.
You did the Booker T.
Yeah.
Harlem sidewalk slam.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that, but that's just kind of how it ended out, and I felt really bad about it. I apologized to him after the fact, but I mean, I planted that guy.
Did you ever like? I bet this has happened for you. Did you ever just like murder someone before, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry? And they're like, no, that was fucking awesome.
Kind of. one of the biggest problems that I had was throwing good punches because I'd spent so long like my muscle memory was like throw legit punches. And if I tried to throw work punches the way a lot of guys do, they've looked awful. And I had the hardest time until I finally got a handle on it. Like I figured out a way to do that. So what I would do is I would kind of throw like jab, jab, jab. And if I was a face, I'd wind up and do the bionic elbow. Actually, I wouldn't. I'd go jab, jab, jab. And then I'd act like I was going to punch him. And the guy flinches and I stomp on his foot. And while he's selling the foot, then I'd wind up and do a bionic elbow. Or if I was a heel, I'd go jab, jab, jab. And then I'd do like a throat thrust. And when I finally got a handle on that, the first guy I did it to was actually Alex Angel. And we got to the back and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry if I peppered you with those jabs. And he's like, no, dude, that was great. Because I was afraid I was throwing him and kind of hitting him like right on the cheekbone. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tater you with those. He's like, no, those were great. That's how you should do it from now on. And I'm like, cool.
That's
awesome.
That's why Scott Hall and Nash loved Rey Mysterio, because when they did the lawn darting to the trailer, because Hall was like, you sure you want to do this? And Ray's like, no, do it. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
And they always I guess they always appreciated him for that afterwards. Which is really cool. You should go look that up if you haven't seen it, because he gets some air.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had one on my head and I forgot what it was. Oh crap. Has the Big Wiggle could come back. Actually, someone should rip off how he did body slams. I always loved his little swinging body slam.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. I loved it.
Okay, so the main event. Oh, we've got any more?
No. Well, I was gonna the thing that Norman Smiley doing that was just such a small thing. It was great, but he used the crossface chicken wing as his finish.
Yeah,
which I thought was fantastic. You know what? Bob Backlund and Norman Smiley. It's like, and it's great because it does one of those things that the first time I remember anybody saying it was that was such a big selling point that Mick Foley brought up, is that you can do that and have both guys' faces in the same shot. So if I've got, an ankle lock can do it. If I've got a crossface chicken wing, I can be right here, be like, and the guy's, you can get the contrast in the same visual right there.
I feel like someone who's just doing it.
Am I one of the few people that really, really actually dug Bob Backlund's I think it was 93 crazy heel run? Like when he just started crossface chicken wing guys, and afterwards he just and muttered to himself. It's because he was clearly insane.
Yeah,
and it's just he couldn't believe that he was doing what he was talking to himself
It was something.
a psycho. I loved it. I loved it. He did it to Jim Ross.
It was something different.
When he did it, I was
time.
yeah, every time in WWE that Jim Ross was horribly assaulted, I just laughed my ass off.
Now
I still watch.
The best Jim Ross assault was when Kane fireballed him.
Damn it! You said that before I could get my box of matches out,
and then they ruined it.
That was obviously meant to be dramatic, and I remember watching that, and I from the deepest parts of my gut just deep belly laughed, I couldn't believe how dumb and stupid it was, but hilarious.
And then
I
there's
still watch
Michael
I still
Cole.
watch the Mankind assault.
Michael Cole still has it's a disturbing yet funny one because Heidenreich got a little amorous with him.
Assaulted him.
Yes.
In different ways.
You're gonna say the Mankind attacking Jim Ross?
Oh yeah.
I don't. So
you're a powerful man, Jimmy.
I've
done a damn thing to you.
That's one thing. That's
it's
one thing.
So good though. It's so good.
That's one thing. WWE.
And afterwards, he's just he's gonna need some help.
That's one thing. It's one thing WWE I think has been as a cardinal sin that they've partaken in too much, because there's something. Charles from PWO, also known as Loss, who we go way back with, has kind of talked about how like your We've talked about this. I don't remember what it was. Oh, it was Dave Brown when Austin Idol like grabbed him in the
Okay.
USWA, and it got all weird, and I was talking about how I would be pissed if it was me, because like you automatically have to like reassert your dominance, but I listened to Lost talking about on a podcast with Zellner and Rob Naylor actually about how your lead announcer should never job. Like Lance Russell never jobbed, because like you're in a lot of ways your top babyface is your play-by-play announcer, and their credibility should always be like, they should never like look stupid, look bad, or like do a job for someone. Because it's a good point, because like think about how little credibility like Michael Cole has.
Yeah, getting I can't even come up with a tasteful way to say this, but getting a PREA violation in a backstage segment is how are you supposed to take it? He's like your news anchor. It's the person that you're supposed to trust to be able to be impartial.
Yeah.
And but then again, it's one of those things, you never do it unless you do it and it can work.
Yeah, but
So,
Lance,
like,
I don't think Lance Russell ever.
right, but
Ever
for
like
example, Mankind flipping out on Jim Ross worked. But it was so rare that it wasn't hardly ever done. But then, they go back and do it again later with Kane, and it's like,
Well, then
no.
they had like Taz, Triple H. Like there was that like 5-year span where every time they were in Oklahoma, they had to do something to like embarrass him.
Well, yeah. Vince's fetish for, it'll get heat for you to bury somebody in their hometown.
I also think where it kind of struggles too, though, is like, so if you think about it logically, which I know it's wrestling, please bear with me. Like, if you had a wrestler, like, think about it as a promoter. If you had a wrestler assault an announcer, like, you're gonna fire them, because it's not even like messing with a referee, which you'd probably fine them for. Like, it's a fucking announcer. Like, that's like pretty much assaulting one of your employees.
Yeah, yeah. It it's one of those things where it doesn't really accomplish anything. So, okay, you're assaulting an announcer, someone who talks for a living. Ooh, big tough guy. Except on the other hand, it's like, yeah, that's okay. The logic is it's a dirtbag move to get heat. Yes, but it's also like, I don't like it from a dominant heel perspective. If you're a little chicken shit who then goes and picks on the announcer because it's like the one guy you think you can intimidate, I could see it more then. I don't love Triple H doing it, and I would say that Taz didn't really job out to Taz because Taz
He got
lost
the last.
in the end.
Well, he caused him to lose. I think it's fine. Like, this is going way back, but like when Don Morocco started abusing Gordon Soley, and his color commentator was Piper, who was a heel, and Piper just lost his shit and like turned face and attacked Morocco. I think it's fine in that instance, because your play-by-play guy just kind of got his tie grabbed a bit, and like you stepped out of bounds and immediately paid the price. Like, I think in that instance, like, it's okay, because like your play-by-play guy doesn't.
Yeah.
Does, because like where I said, like with the Austin Idol thing, where I think that went wrong is it wasn't planned. But like if it was me, it's like, well, you immediately have to alpha dog him, because you have to, because he made you look bad, and you know as a play by play guy, people might not think that, but like you can't. You have to retain your credibility because you don't want to be Michael
Right.
Cole.
No, I do not want to be Michael Cole. I don't want to be I don't want to be Michael Cole. You want to be Michael Cole? I want to be Michael Cole.
And I don't even put that blame on him, but like the heel turn, and like all the stuff they've done to him over the years, like you can't retain credibility doing that. Okay, so we're doing a Barry Windham kind of highlight this week. We've done some stuff with him before, like especially during the Dangerous Alliance era. He came up a lot.
Let me ask you a question. Was there a particular impetus for this, or was it just kind of, hey, let's do some Barry Windham stuff? Because I don't remember.
I was trying to find... I got mad because I couldn't find it, but I was trying to find the match he had with Flair on Worldwide in like January of '87. That's awesome. Like, it's probably even better than the one we watched. So I was like... I looked at the other ones like, oh, we should do Flair versus Windham. That's always been kind of on my wish list. And then I was like, ooh, let me see if I can find Luger and Windham because I wanted to do that forever. And then I was like, oh, I've also wanted to do I pretty much picked 3 matches that have been on like my one watch list at some point, and they all just kind of came together because I was like, well, these are 3 really great matches, and I know Matt and Shad have at least not seen 2 of them, and I thought Shad would appreciate all 3 of them, but 2 of them in particular, I thought he would appreciate.
I think that I probably saw the Luger Windham match 20 years ago because I think I saw Chi-Town Rumble.
It has a Flair Steamboat match on it, so you've probably seen it.
That was pretty much why I because the '89 Flair Steamboat series is one of the best wrestling series of all time. And I think for me, I personally thought it was the best for years until you could make the argument. I think it's true that the Okada Omega series like eclipsed it because those were better matches. I don't want to get into a whole Dave Meltzer discussion because to me, my scale, and I think the scale should still cap out at 5. So I'm not down with this. Like, this is a 7-star match. It's like, no, like but I think the Flair Steamboat series from '89 was like, I think it's 3 matches. They're pretty much all like 5-star matches. Fantastic. That's why I watched Chi-Town Rumble, but I watched like the show, so I had to have seen this.
Yeah.
Like, there's no chance I didn't see it, but I saw it once, probably like 20, 25 years ago. So I don't remember it from since then. So
we should do that. We should do the Flair Steamboat at some point because the interesting thing about Flair Steamboat is the opinions on the best match is super varied. Like, people, like, all 3 matches get picked. Like, my favorite is the 2 out of 3 falls match, but like a lot of people like the Wrestle War match, and the Chi-Town Rumble match gets a lot of love. It's very interesting to see how divided people are on the best match.
It's this weird thing for me because I can't. Maybe it was which was the last one?
Wrestle War. That's the one where That's the one where Funk comes out at the end and pile drives Flair on the table. Yeah, that's Wrestle War.
Okay, I needed to check my memory on which one that was. The thing that I watched the Wrestle War match. No kidding, at this point, it was like 23, 24 years ago. And the thing was, at the time, I was in that super work rate headspace, and so I was being grumpy about it, and I did not give it a fair chance. So the hard thing about those is that we'd have to gap those out because they're all like an hour long.
Well, you know what's funny is we actually we've dipped our toe in that water because we did do the World Championship Wrestling episode where Steamboat comes back. Yeah.
An excellent angle. But it's one of those, if we were going to do that, like I said, we need to space that out because that's 3 hours of watching, and that might be a little much.
Might be 2 hours because I think the Flair and Steamboat 2 out of 3 falls is an hour, and I think the other 2 are between 20 and 30 apiece. They're not all an hour.
Okay.
But I actually think just in general, I think Flair and Wyndham is kind of underrated as far as like a series of matches that are excellent goes.
Uh, this one that we're going to talk about now is really good.
It wouldn't
I
even
don't,
be the
I don't,
best one, I don't think. Either.
no, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I think that the consensus is generally like the 87 match they had
This is 80.
was
This
better.
is I think this is 80.
86.
Oh, this is 86. Okay.
It's February 14th, 1986, Battle
Okay.
of the Belts #2.
Okay. Yeah, the 87 one on Worldwide, which is on it was on the first Flair disc WWE put out, the first collection. That is, I think, an hour time limit draw that goes like the whole episode of Worldwide, and it's awesome.
Mm.
But so this is I really like this because there's a lot that can be said about this match because there's a lot of what I would say is like conventional wisdom that I think this match really smashes to bits and pieces. Like for starters, we'll say I would say this is a very slow paced match. And it's not slow, and as they don't do a lot, like there's a lot of moving and jockeying for position, but like where it's kind of slow is it's a championship match, so it's very deliberate. They're letting things breathe. Like everything has a weight to it that kind of you feel like if they're on the ground working the mat like that arm is going to have like a weight to it that they make you feel.
My impression watching this match is that it was not fast or slow. It was a case where you would mash on the gas and then let off of it and coast. Not coast, but like it had explosive moments scattered through it. And then it had settings around those explosive moments to really make sure that those stood out.
It's kind of like if you watch like a big title match in the UFC and like it's not like a barn burner like people are hoping because they're working a very conservative game plan because they don't want to screw up. Like it kind of has that vibe to it.
I quit watching UFC years ago, so I don't have a good
Yeah.
Fair
I like just from the very beginning of this, the promo that Flair cut. Because I thought it was interesting because Flair wasn't just. I mean, I don't have memorized like all the different like Flair turns, and so in early '86, I don't know if he was like face or heel. I'm not sure.
This would have been like peak Horseman.
Yeah, I would think so. So he would be like a heel, but the promo he did was not like a heelish promo. If anything, it almost seemed more like a babyface promo, in that he was actually really hyping up Barry Windham. Like he was talking about how like Barry Windham comes from like a wrestling family. Like Barry is like really tough. He's a great opponent, etc. And I've talked before in the show. One of the pearls of wisdom that I saw from an old Jim Cornette shoot before he went crazy, which is great advice that it always stuck with me, is like if you're doing a promo, face or heel, you want to talk up your opponent, because if you're going to be booked to beat that opponent now with this match or down the road, you want to hype up that opponent, because if you hype them up and you beat them, then you beat somebody. If you're like, my opponent's a chump, and you beat a chump, then it's like, well, that does you no good winning against a chump. And if you lose against the chump, present him as a chump, and then you lose, it's like, well, you just got beat by a nobody, a punk. Like, so that hurts you too. You always want to hype them up. Yeah. If you're like the arrogant chicken shit heel, you can still hype them up. You can just be like an arrogant heel where it's like, yeah, like they're really tough, they're bad, but I'm still the best. I'm going to beat them. It's like you can still do it in a way that you're playing true to your character, but you're hyping them up to, you're actually showing like, oh no, this person's like a legit threat, and they're a really good athlete, they're a good worker, etc. But whatever. And in Flair, this is interesting to me, because it wasn't like Horseman Flair. It's like, they're really extravagant, like limousine ride and jet flying, whatever. He's just like talking up Barry Windham, like he's tough, like he's a great worker, like a lot of respect for him and his dad, Blackjack Mulligan. Like it was impressive to me. Yeah. I don't know why it was that type of. I don't know enough about the backstory, Battle of the Belts. I don't know if they were trying to present it
I think
more
Florida was a
straight.
little more real sporty, but I would
Mm,
say he's probably the heel here because if Barry Windham had a home territory, it was probably Florida, and at this point he would have been fresh out of WWE, so he would have been just like smack back in like a
yeah,
territory that had been struggling.
Flair wasn't during the match. He wasn't overly like healing it up, but that was something. Yeah, I guess I didn't know this. Was this and did this take place in Florida? The
Yeah,
show.
because they mentioned
Okay.
well, for one, it's Gordon Soley on commentary,
Yeah.
Buddy Colt, and then I think it was Mike Graham that was the co-commentator, but I wasn't sure.
Yes. Yes, it was Mike Grant because I noted it. I'm like, who is
Yeah,
that? And then
and
they actually showed it.
they talked about Tampa a lot during the match,
Yeah.
and they said where
Uh,
they were in some, they might have been in Tampa for this actually. They mentioned where they were, and it was like a Florida building.
yeah. Uh, that makes sense. Because when Barry came out, like the crowd was like fucking hot for Barry. Like it, and they stayed hot for Barry like the entire time. Like he really was like over with the crowd. Like he was a star.
Now, this was a
Um,
good crowd. They really like, they really. It's not like that ECW crowd from last week that like immediately booed the second they didn't like bring out the garbage.
mm,
Like they popped for a lot of stuff. Like they were really following the match, and were into what they were watching. Also, noted the referee is Bill Alfonso.
That threw me because he had hair, and I wasn't expecting it.
He was an interesting referee because I've seen him before, but like in this one, I kind of liked what he was doing. It's not like when he was being like when Gene Knitsky screwed up that Flair race match in the cage because they weren't allowed to use the cage. But I liked how if Bill Alfonso wanted them to stop doing something, he would physically interject himself. Like if they were in the corner throwing punches and he wanted them to stop, he would literally get between them and like drag the
Yeah,
one guy away, or like he would get between them and like grab the guy's arm. Or there's like a point that Shad really liked where Flair pushed him and he pushed Flair back.
yeah. Alfonso was a very
Authoritarian.
authoritative. He was a very authoritative ref, but he also didn't upstage anybody. So one of the things about this match that I liked, man, they started this hot. There was not a slow build to it. Like they went like at the beginning, they went hard early, and I appreciated that because I messaged the guys about this, and it's something that I probably gripe about too often. But I, the damned never made it anywhere indie vet that sits in the back. Well, back in the day, you just worked the arm, and people would come out of the chair, and it's like, dude, here, hold on, let me say, look at that. What are they doing there? No, they're not just working the arm, man. They're starting hot. They're doing stuff. They're getting people engaged. They're not, oh, get that. Let me get that. Okay, I got the arm now. All right, we're going to, yeah, this will be fine. It's because your fat ass doesn't want to do anything.
What's funny about
Um,
that is we've watched stuff from the 80s where like guys are being lazy and just doing arm work, and you can tell the crowd is getting pissed off at them or chanting boring at them in
Yeah.
like the 80s.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. It's like, nope, we're starting this hot. And I mean, Wyndham went at him. It was great.
Also, though, when they are working the arm, they're like, they don't just sit there. Like Wyndham's always cranking it, Flair's always kind of like wincing and like yelling. Like
Mhm.
they're always doing something.
Yes.
the obviously with these two guys, the ring work was fantastic. The selling was fantastic. Like, not that this is like the example, but this is a good example that if you are trying to teach, especially the younger workers, you're running a camp or something like that, and it's like this could easily be a homework assignment or
Mhm.
an in-class assignment. It's like, all right, everyone, we're gonna take an hour-long break from
Yeah.
doing drills and stuff like that. gonna sit down. We're all gonna watch this match. Okay, watch the match. Good. Well, maybe like an hour and a half break because it's like a 50-minute match between promo and into the match.
Mm-hmm.
Watch it and then pointing out like you can go like minute by minute even. It's like, what do they do here? Oh, look what Flair did. For example, like, and I actually love it when like whenever someone puts the figure 4 on Flair, it's like like he really exaggerated selling. Oh God, like and everything like that. But what I loved about this, because I noticed it wasn't the match kept going. So it wasn't like he did this for another 30 minutes. But right at like the few minutes after having that figure 4 put on him by Barry Windham, what's happening? He's doing moves, and then he's like limping on the correct leg.
Yeah,
that was it.
Well, there's
he's like selling it, and it's like I can't tell you how many people don't do it. Will Ospreay, cough, Will Ospreay.
More than once though, he also.
I'm not hating on Will Ospreay, but that is my number one gripe with Will Ospreay is that he doesn't fucking sell for shit.
More
maybe
than
that's
once
because he
though.
has horrible ADD.
More than once though,
forgets to
he
sell.
also his leg buckled a couple times. We went for a move too soon after he's getting worked over. Like one time he went for I think a slam, and Barry Windham fell on top because his leg buckled. And then it happened later in the match too, like when he went on offense. But also, him being in the figure 4 is interesting because he did a couple things I'd never seen anyone before. Because he started like trying to pick the leg to the side. Like there were a couple things he did, and like he would strategically go down on his shoulders to take the pressure off. Gordon Soley actually was talking about how he did something that most people don't do that was like instantly like took the pressure off, like he guarded his leg a certain way when Windham applied it. It was an interesting. I also love when people try to put like the heels in their own stuff.
Matt, I want to continue on with what you were saying because to me, bad selling is like the cardinal sin of wrestling. If you don't sell well, then what the hell are we doing? Like if you don't sell for shit, then I don't like you, and I don't think you're very good. And I know you did cough, but that's what takes me out of Ospreay stuff. Like the hell of it is, I like Ospreay in everything except his ring work for that reason. Because he'll have this. He'll do a great promo. He's a likable guy, and then he'll get to that point when they're starting to go into the end of the match where he will just quit selling everything so he can get his shit in. And I'm like,
they did that angle last year, like around May with him, and it was so awesome. I'm like, God damn it! Like I know I'm not gonna like the match. I think when they were going into Forbidden Door, they did that great angle with him, and I was like, this is so good, and I don't care about the match because it's Will Ospreay.
Yeah, and it it kills me. But this match, they sold so well. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Let me rant about Will Ospreay just for a minute. I think the funny thing is I actually do think he has improved as a worker. But I don't think that he will ever be like, best in the world now or best ever category. Which, if you listen to again, you can be like, why do you base his opinion on like so much in his opinion? It's like I don't, but his opinion has been kind of like the gold standard. But Dave Meltzer has rated something like 50-something matches of Will Ospreay at 5 stars or higher, which is the most than anyone else. I think Okada and Omega are next, and they're like 20 matches below Will Ospreay. And it really amounts to like Dave likes flashy shit that is done very fast. And that's Will Ospreay. And I think Will Ospreay, again, I do think he actually has improved. But to me, he never will be as good as someone like Omega or Okada or even people like Misawa, Kawada, Ric Flair. He never will because Terry Funk, he doesn't sell. And I feel perhaps kind that I'm giving him an excuse. It's like you say you're autistic. I've actually, in my real life, dealt with people who are autistic. I don't think you're really autistic. And I'm not trying to hate. I'm not trying to disparage. I'm not trying to diminish someone who says that maybe he has been tested. Like, I don't know. But I mean, I have dealt with people who are on the range of spectrums from autistic to very severely autistic due to their nonverbal to very high functioning.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even know that you're like the very high functioning type. I do think he probably has some neurodivergent stuff of being like ADHD. And maybe that's why it's like in the moment, you're like, oh, I forgot to sell the leg that got worked on for the last 5 minutes. I forgot to sell it. It's like, okay, I'm giving him a pass, but he doesn't really sell for whatever reason. So I don't think to me, he's top tier.
Osprey
in this match, it was great selling. What are you going to say, Shad?
Osprey has been, if I remember correctly, he has been diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia.
I did know those things. So those are two things which are a big deal.
I mean, the thing is, I have one of my best friends is dyslexic. I don't think people realize it is crippling.
Yeah,
like it's
like really hard.
Fucked for life. Like,
I've in my life I have dealt with or represented people who have a variety of impairments, and those are like very much on the ones I've dealt with. That's what that's the whole thing. It's like a lot of doctors or what have you nowadays prescribe kids like Ritalin or Adderall or something for ADHD.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with enough that it's like, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a psychological professional, but I can almost like tell who really has ADHD or they're just normally hyper kids. Like I can tell because people who have ADHD, it's way more pervasive. Like you can give someone who has ADHD, like an intelligence test, and they will score lower than average person. Does that mean that they're not as smart intellectually? No. It means that they have a disorder that affects certain aspects of their cognition or their working memory, their processing memory, sometimes their visual memory, and that will lower the score. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are intellectually deficient. It means that they have something that, when it comes to actually processing information, something can go awry. But that's people who actually have like strong, like legit ADHD or neurodivergent stuff versus just like, I'm a really hyper kid because again, I have like a 5-year-old girl, not even a boy who's like, boys are, I feel like way more hyper. I have a 5-year-old girl and it's like, she could literally bounce off the walls for an hour, play with her hard, like and fast for an hour, bounce way more energy than I could have as an adult man.
Yeah.
I could be like panting at the end of it after that hour of going hard in the paint. And I'd be like, I need a break. And she'd be like, what are we doing next? And it's like, oh my God. Like kids are just hyper in general. And some kids more so than others. I'm not saying my kid is ADHD. I'm saying my kid is a hyper kid.
So,
but like he could have, it could be very severe. And that's why like, maybe you don't sell the leg that got worked for 5 minutes because that's not where your brain is. But not trying to put this disability against him.
We're at this point in your career, though. Like, oh, by the way, Osprey. Oddly enough, this was in his Hey EW interview. He said he suspected that he was on the spectrum, but he had never been diagnosed for that. But it's like, look, man, if we're kind of in this place where if you're going to be operating at this high level for as long as you have and that sort of stuff, it's like, I can understand you're going to have challenges, but. And maybe this is me being uncharitable, and maybe this is my ignorance showing, but I would think that if this is the thing you do, like, this is something you would have learned.
Well, I know, like, for me, I developed coping mechanisms, like, even as a child, because I needed to get through school. Like, so I just learned, like, for me, like, I can't do it anymore because I'm medicated. Well, I learned I had it because I got medicated for something else, which has the side effect of treating ADHD, and then I realized I had it. But I had just learned how to, like, segment my brain, and at least part of my brain had to pay attention to what I was doing, and then the rest could, like, squirrel off and do other stuff. But that's how I learned to cope with ADHD, was to disassociate a lot.
It is a twofold thing. Like, medication actually there are certain medications which will help people focus more. But there are the coping mechanisms, so you really kind of need like psychotherapy beyond just like medicating.
Yeah.
And a lot of times nowadays, because it's a whole pharmaceuticals is a whole racket. And it's like, oh, we'll just put your kid on drugs, and it's like, no, you shouldn't put people, especially teenagers, just on like effectively the equivalent of methamphetamines.
Yeah.
Unless they absolutely need it.
It actually made me worse at what my job title was at the time, because I had a very diagnostic heavy job. And before I was really great at it because I could solve stuff really quick because I could think through 5 things at once. Then when I got Medicaid, I'm like, well, shit, I can only think of one thing at one time.
Yeah.
So,
Shad.
then I figured out, like, oh, this is why caffeine and stimulants never did anything to me my whole life.
Because you're already stimulated.
Yeah.
Already, like, over stimulated. Again, not to hate on Osprey and his potential disability or impairment, whatever, but I thought I was on the spectrum, but I haven't gotten tested. It's like, again, having dealt with people who have actually had those issues, I'm not trying to hate, I'm not trying to disparage or diminish, but you can have ADHD or some other non-autistic medical or mental disorder going on, and that does affect your social functioning.
Yeah.
Well,
in lots of different ways, and that doesn't mean, again, there's a lot of like there unfortunately is kind of a stigma. So if I say like people who have ADHD or depression or anxiety or a bunch of other things, they can have social functioning limitations.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like they're you're a weirdo or you're something wrong with you in that. It just means like these things affect your functioning with other human beings. So you could be like Will Ospreay and have difficulty communicating or interacting with people, and it doesn't mean I'm autistic, I'm on the spectrum necessarily.
I could see how he got to that conclusion though, because like, so obviously I'm medicated for depression and anxiety, and there's like, when you first get medicated and like you fix like some severe mental health problems, there is like an adjustment period, quite a long adjustment period, where like some things happen, like, wow, this is like what normal people do. And like, there's like this whole like kind of learning process where you realize like how just absolutely fucked you were, like, and how like abnormal like everything you did was. So I could see how if he got treated for something, like he might have started suspecting, because like there is a period where like things happen, you're like, and you're like, oh, like this is like I said, like I had that conversation with myself more than once when I first got Medicare. I was like, oh, this is how normal people react to this. And it's a very disconcerting thing.
To give Osprey some credit, he didn't say I am, but not undiagnosed. He said, I don't know. He said I might be, but I never got tested for that. So I'll give him credit on it. I mean, he's really forthright about the other stuff. But like I said, I like the guy outside of the ring. I want him to succeed. The fact that the guy is dealing with this stuff and is as successful as he is fantastic. I just can't love his ring work the way other people do.
Yeah, no, the same way. It doesn't speak to me. But I do want to go back to this match, because Barry Windham did something I'd never seen him do before in this match. A fucking missile drop kick.
Oh yeah.
He did.
I had to rewind it. I'm like, holy shit! Did he just come off the top rope with that? Like, oh, he did.
He did.
He did a couple times in this. He did his flying lariat. And I forgot watching Barry. I love that flying lariat, because the dude he's like what, like 6'5", 6'6", big dude.
He's billed at 6'5".
Yeah. And he was a little bit more on the lanky side, at least in
the tag, which is a year later, he's pretty built in that. Like, I was like, oh, you put on some mass.
Yeah, he has size. But a lot of it, he was like tall and maybe lanky's not the right word, but lean.
No, I'd say lanky. I'd say rangy.
He was long-limbed.
He's kind of like, he's bigger than a basketball player. Like, he doesn't have like the chicken legs and stuff, but he's kind of basketball player built.
Yeah. Lean, kind of lean. I mean, built, in good shape. Like,
he's got a lot of like like he's got a lot of length to him. Like if you were
Yeah.
like his reach is a lot, his legs are long. Like he really
Mhm.
has a lot. And he didn't do, I don't think he did any of the matches, which I was bummed about, but he didn't do his bulldog, which his bulldog is really underrated.
Oh yeah, yeah. He he was just really good in this match. Like his selling was really good. His psychology was really good. He was a fantastic in-ring worker.
His deployment of how he worked the limbs, I thought, was excellent. Like
Mhm.
he just didn't do anything like, I wouldn't say he wasn't doing anything to kill time. Like everything he did like made sense, like to why he was
Yeah.
taking that specific approach to it.
I know these matches were kind of a showcase of Barry, but in this match, again, the real person can be problematic. But it's hard to not watch matches like this and not also appreciate Ric Flair and all the things he would do, the little things or the big things. And a couple things that struck me, just like he would do this all the time. So if you'd seen like a million Flair matches, sometimes you even like forget it. But if you go a while without seeing some Flair stuff, which I have, it's been a little bit since I saw a good amount of Flair matches like consistently. But in this match, like some of just the little stuff he did, like his ring presence was fantastic. Like Barry would do a move, like maybe like the flying laird or something like that, and Flair would be down. Like, oh, you think, oh my god, this would be it. But they're close to the ropes. And so Barry's like cover them, and it's like very dramatic. The crowd's like going crazy. It's like, 1, 2, and it's like Flair just puts that leg right there on the ropes. He just has to move like 6 inches, and it's right there on the ropes. And the ref is right there, and he sees it, and it's like taps Barry in the shoulder. No.
It's
Put on
kind
the
of,
ropes.
it kind of meant less later. But when they talk about like dirtiest player in the game, like you
Mm.
really see it in this match, even though he's not cheating. It's just like he just is such a master inside that ring, like putting
Mm.
the foot on the ropes. Like how many guys wouldn't even think to like do that in that situation?
Well, and I want to actually ask you, Shad, because you're obviously the only one of us who actually was in the ring. Like, you have spots like that, and this is like after doing the match like 20, 30 minutes, and then you have that spot. And obviously, you as a worker, you should know where you are in the ring and what's going on like that. But like to me, it still seems like you got a really good presence and understanding of everything going on, and really just mentally are in this whole game and the show you're putting on for people. That like, okay, we did the spot. I'm gonna go down. I know the ropes are right there. For dramatic purposes, I'm gonna act like, oh, I'm out, down for the count, folks. And then it's like 1, 2, putting that leg on that rope.
Yeah.
As a worker, it's like, is that a planned spot going in, or are you just like something you on the fly you do? To me, it's like you are thinking and really getting over the storytelling aspect of this, because you're building that crowd up to be like, oh yeah, this is they're gonna think this is the finish, but then it's like, nope, and then you're adding drama to
there's
that.
the think about it too. There's the added feature of him being the champion, where it's like, well, I could kick out of this, but oh, the rope's right there. I'm just gonna put my foot on there because that's less.
I
less
don't have to
exertion.
exert the energy to kick out.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that could go either way, I guess. I kind of think that it was probably just a presence of mind in the moment thing. Because, that was pretty far into the match. And if they're calling things that far ahead, I'm like, are you really? But I think that was more of an in the moment, and it's just Flair being down and real stretched out for it. So he's like, okay, he either knows I'm getting ready to bump over here, or he hits the mat and knows where he is. So he kind of stretches out for it. It was something that I was always trying to be aware of myself, because like, let's say that I do a big move and the guy goes down. Well, okay, I just did a big move, right? Like I just did a big, I just did a big clothesline. I just did a big shoulder block, something like that. And I go for a pin. It's like, in that moment, am I going to want to take enough time to stop and drag you away from the ropes? Because the way that I always thought about it is, if I go for a pin and you're close to the ropes, I'm going to grab that far arm and I'm going to hook that far leg. You know, because it makes it look like I'm paying attention. Now, the way that I would play it off is I would hook the far leg, but it would also have enough play that the guy could like twist and hit the rope if that's what he wanted to do instead of kick out. But my gut says that it's an in the moment thing. You know, you get in there and the ring is a certain. If you're a certain height and the ring's a certain size, then it's pretty likely that you could get to the ropes if you're really stretching for it.
Yeah, because I always hate it, like, when you watch a match, it happens more now than it used to, but, like, where they do the finisher and they're not supposed to kick out, but they're so painfully close that they could have, like, made it. And they have to, like, really, like, stretch things to make you not believe they could have reached for it.
That's why I liked okay, I'm going for the pin. I'm hooking this arm up. I'm hooking this leg so you can't do that because I can see the rope is right there. To me, it seemed dumb to not be paying attention to that, and it annoyed me.
You know where I really liked it, and it happens in Joshimar, when we watched the Suri Utami match, where she got her in that armbar, and like Utami knew the ropes were there somewhere, and she just starts flailing wildly, trying to hook a leg onto the ropes. And
I did that sometimes.
Like, I really like that element of like the desperation.
Yeah,
of it.
I did do that sometimes because I'm down and someone's got the stuff. You know, someone's got something on me, and it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to just power out of this or anything. So I'm extending one of my legs, and a lot of my height's in my legs. You know, it's funny. My brother is a long torso person, but my height's in my legs, so I'm stretching a leg looking for something, right? And that was something I always tried to do, but
yeah. So this one is on YouTube. It's their Battle of the Belts 2 match. I would say it's about 45 minutes when you take everything out. I would say it's a highly watchable match. Like, I would say where I knew I was enjoying this is sometimes I just check to see how much time I have left. And I don't even think I did that. I think the announcer said that 25 minutes had gone by, and I was kind of astounded that like, it's a really easy watch. Like, it really flies for how long it is.
Yeah.
I should talk quickly about this match again. I really loved this. This match went a little bit long, but I loved they sold the exhaustion really well to me. I mean, it's like it. Look, people hated on AEW Battle of the Belts, and I agree. It kind of just became like
they did too much.
Yeah, they did too much, and it didn't become like
no belts ever changed hands.
Yeah, it did become something that's like you really should go out of your way, because it's like a belt could change hands, or like a pay-per-view level type match. But this was different. This is when the concept was kind of like legit. Because at this point, like, I knew that it didn't, but it did come off to me. It's like, oh my god! Like, there was a couple points. It's like, oh my god, Barry could win. I knew, like, I'm watching this match like almost 40 years after the fact. I know that Barry didn't win the title off Flair. Like, I know that didn't happen, but there was a couple times in this match. It's like, oh man, like, maybe, like, it could happen. And it's like, I know it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I still was able to suspend disbelief. And it's like, oh, this could be the match. Like, I was drawn into it. And maybe this is because, like you said, that they kind of booked it, or the idea was it was more like almost like a real sport type of thing, which obviously companies years later, modern companies like New Japan or even AEW to an extent, try to do it's a real sport type of feel. So maybe it was like that, but I did love that as the match went on, they did have that kind of like exhaustion setting in. Like, these guys had been giving it their all for like 30, 40 minutes. So they're like worn out, but they're still like, dropping bombs on each other. I just thought this was a fantastic match. really good. The match, the finish, I didn't necessarily like.
That's how
Like,
you. But that's
kind
kind
of,
of like that was kind of your NWA champion. Like,
yeah,
hometown boy would have had it, but Flair just suckered him into getting counted out. Like it's kind of. I think it's. I don't like it in hindsight, but like for a live crowd or whatever, like you didn't bury your hometown guy. And then you'll see Flair in 6 months, and I think it's like it. And it didn't feel like I would say it didn't feel like a total fuck you either.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't feel cheated by the count out.
Yeah. Well.
yeah. I mean, I understood it. I also was a little bit nervous because I felt like the ropes look a little loose. So for them to do like this top rope thing where they spilled out, I'm like, oh my god.
Well,
Yeah.
that spot real early on, where that rope did something hanky to Flair, I was kind of like, I went back and watched that like 3 or 4 times trying to figure out if that was a planned spot or if they were just playing it off. Because yeah, those ropes were not on there tight. So it's like, not. I don't like tumble to the floor spots in general. So
Yeah, and remember we watched didn't Destroyer and Don Leo Jonathan do that in that All Japan match? We watched it, and they take like a big tumble outside.
Yeah, I think they did.
So we're gonna go to the next match, which I'm gonna call this like a forgotten gem of the '80s. So this is from World Championship Wrestling, and this is Barry Windham and Ron Garvin versus the Midnight Express, the Eaton and Lane version for the vacant United States Tag Team titles. This is from I think May or June of '87. I think it's from May. And so we start off, and Jim Cornette cuts a promo about how his guys are gonna have been working out all day and they're taking this seriously and they're gonna win those belts. So then we go to the match. We get the cool Midnight Express music, and then we just go into what I was watching this, and this was like, this is why I like this style of wrestling more than like whatever the WWE has ever done, because this was just like a good Southern style, like hard hitting match where they even did like they did a fake like hot tag. They did this really great because Barry's so much bigger than either Midnight Express, but he did this great job, and he did it in the Flair match. He's really good at putting himself in peril through mistakes. So in this one, he's just going to town on everyone, but he goes for like a knee drop off the top rope and just crashes and burn, which lets the Midnights take over on him.
this match is incredibly enjoyable because in the course of watching it, we have 2 build-ups to hot tags. We have the 2 build-ups to hot tags, and you get to see the heels not be bumbling morons. The heels are, and they have to rebuild because the face overcommits or tries to bites off more than he can chew.
And they're
but in
kind
doing,
of,
and the heels are able to take over that way. But we have 2 segments, not only of really good hot tags, where it's not like, I call them iceberg tags, where you both lay on the mat and then you both really slowly go and you're like,
because Ronnie Garvin really pulls like he did. Like Ronnie Garvin did like had some moves. I'm like, wow, he's like, I don't even remember what he did, but he did this like fancy, like he got away and he like dove for it or did like a roll or something. I'm like, wow, I didn't know Ronnie Garvin could do that.
He did. I loved this. I think it was Garvin doing it. It might have been Wyndham doing this one, but one of them did a side spot to something that one of the Midnights was going to do, and he didn't like reach towards him and dive. He like full on did a back bump, but had his arm stretched all the way out
Oh yeah,
to catch
that
the
was
other.
Ron
And
Garvin.
I was like, excellent, love that, because it just made it desperate, but it was also a hot tag that's exciting, because as you're going for it, it's big reach hot tag, and it's firing up. But then you also had the Midnights doing the very good cutting the ring in half thing, and the isolation,
And
in doing this, the faces still look dominant because they get the hot tags and they come in and they just kick the crap out of the Midnights. But then the Midnights are cagey because they isolate and
they're
wear the faces down.
and they're savvy enough to realize that they aren't a match one-on-one with either of them, so they're working around that. And I want to say, like, Garvin shit in this, he looks like he's just murdering the Midnights when he's doing his stuff.
Yeah.
It was in this match I was watching and I'm like, now I see how Barry Windham throws working punches. But Garvin's just looked great.
Barry's punches are good.
They're good. I just figured out how he did it.
How share how the
I'll tell you off. Don't want to give away the farm.
Okay.
His superplex
offline. Tell us how the donuts are made.
His
superplex, there we go.
Time to make the donuts.
His superplex on Eaton looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came on that hot tag, he was just killing them.
Eaton missing that top rope elbow drop was a spot where I looked at that because he hit the Alabama Jam earlier, and man, after we finally figured out how Bobby Eaton didn't destroy his pelvis doing it, I appreciate that so much more. But then he does an elbow drop, and I mean, just absolutely eats dirt.
Yeah,
just flat out crash and burn, and it's like, oh man, he committed to that one huge.
Well, and so this is something I wish a lot of companies would watch, because this is how you screw the baby faces over without making them look like chumps. So what happens is things kind of break down, because Cornette gets involved and Barry Windham goes out and puts him in a sleeper, which allows Stan Lane to grab a chair and he smashes Garvin with it, and Eaton kind of throws Eaton on top. And then Windham never notices it, and Garvin gets pinned. But why companies should look at this, because pretty much the end is like they storm off, and it's just Eaton is dead in the ring with a belt on him, and Cornette's dead on the side of the ring, and like Lane is nowhere to be seen. And it's like, oh yeah, they got screwed, but they look like they got murdered in the process, so the faces didn't like lose anything.
Yeah. This was a good match. I actually, while I do like him, I wasn't as interested in the match necessarily when Garvin was in there. I was more like excited about Barry, and I thought Barry was more the dynamic of the two, and it really the match really came alive when I think Barry was in there. But I loved like the ending stretch to this, because it just got, pardon my language, just fucking chaotic. It just got all like crazy. And again, like I was cheering on the faces. So them getting screwed over for the titles, I'm like, they got screwed over. But it was so like a crazy like ending. And you had the Midnights, it's like they won effectively like a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah.
Like, you kept the titles, but you got the shit kicked out of you. You know, so yeah, Cornette's down, Bobby Eaton's down, Stan Lane, it's like, who knows?
Yeah.
Turn tail.
I think Windham chased him off, because Windham kind of like rampages around and just destroys everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Windham was, if I remember the sequence right, Windham was putting the sleeper on Cornette, which is why he missed Lane hitting Garvin with the chair.
Because what happens is Garvin ends up on the outside, and I think Cornette tries to get him with the tennis racket, and they kind of have a standoff. But Windham comes out of the ring, and he's just like, "Oh, I'll take care of this." And he puts him in the sleeper, so then they go back in the ring with Eaton and Garvin. And I think Garvin was punching Eaton in the corner, and if you were like looking, like if we're talking the hard cam side, like literally Windham is putting Cornette out and they're facing the camera, and then Lane comes up behind him, hits Garvin with the chair, and then he kind of gets chased around by Wyndham, and they start to go in the ring, but like Wyndham never like makes eye contact with what's going on. He gets pinned, and then he's like, "What? Like I didn't realize that was
Yeah, he
happening."
goes in there to try and pin somebody, and it's like, dude, the match is over.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense.
It's Teddy Long reffing.
You know,
I saw that.
I wondered.
Yeah. I actually wrote in my notes Teddy Long as ref. Like I'm like,
I know that awful haircut in the '80s anywhere with him.
I looked at it and I was like, that looks like Teddy Long, but I'm not sure if it is or not.
Yeah.
So.
But this is such a fun tag. Like I feel like this needs to be out there more because I don't feel like it's been seen by enough people because it's really fun.
It is. It is really fun. It's
really fun, and because this was like late '80s JCP, the announce team is Tony Schiavone, the seal of the tongue, Tony Schiavone, and David Crockett, which I was talking to you guys beforehand. Like I actually love David Crockett announcing just because David Crockett gets so just infectiously loves every minute of things. Like he is a true wrestling fan and a mark for the baby faces. So anything they do, he gets super excited about. And when I first started listening to JCP or watching JCP, I was like, who's this guy? Just a fanboy. But now it's like every time I hear David Crockett, I'm like, David Crockett, I love David Crockett. Like he gets so excited for the faces and hates the heels and just has a passion for things. Brad, wasn't it? I forget what year it was, but wasn't it this kind of goes to your the announcer can't get the shit beat out of him. You can't job your announcer basically. But wasn't it Nikita gave the Russian signal to David Crockett? 85. Okay, because, and even Flair got pissed off.
Oh no,
and it's
Flair
what the
Flair
fuck?
Flair flipped it because they did this interesting thing with Flair in '85. So that happened, and Flair just flips his fucking shit. So they did this thing for the rest of the year where Flair is kind of he's a face when he's against the Russians, but he's kind of a heel against everyone else. So you have this dichotomy where Flair could be a face or heel depending on the situation, but it's a really great promo. I need to see if I can find it because the angle where he gives the Russian sickle to Crockett's really good because they're doing a promo and he just gets more and more Nikita just gets more and more mad and he just nails him, and then Flair comes out the next week and just goes off. I think that causes the "This Is America" promo he does on Nikita, but it's a really good angle and Flair just goes off about it. Because it's kind of the underlying thing that that Flair and David Crockett, despite what Flair does, they're kind of friends, regardless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what they were doing with Britt Baker and Tony for a long time. It was kind of that.
Yeah.
But David's the color guy. You can beat up the color guy. It's the plate by. So it wasn't Tony. Tony's. Well, did they both commentate worldwide? That year, I think they're both on Worldwide that year. I think David Crockett did the interviews though, and he and Tony did this. But if you watch mid '80s JCP, it's real weird because the regular TV is in gyms and stuff, but then if you watch World Championship Wrestling, it's a TV studio, so the production values are really divergent between.
Yeah.
And I thought Tony had a good call for this match too, because I like how they pointed out, and it was a really great bit of detail, but when they come out, they're like, hey, Jim Cornette had a different a much smaller racket when he did the interview before the show.
Yeah, they pointed that out. Look, one of the big differences between this match and the previous match for me, and I know that there are a lot of people that respected him and liked him and stuff, but it just illustrated why I was not a Gordon Soley fan as an announcer. Because, man, it was there was no... everything was just monotone. And I'm
I thought he was actually a little more animated than usual for that time period. I mean, at least he was sober.
I mean, even if he's animated at that point, dude, that's still not it's a...
Remember we were watching the Continental stuff and he was just sloshed and they're doing the Adrian Street thing. He's like, look, I know he likes cock, but I trust me, he's all man. Like when he's trying to like figure out how to like announce the Adrian Street as like a face, it's just don't worry about it, dude.
Yeah, but
Remember, there's that
yeah,
one match he just couldn't like let it go. Like he's like, look, I know, but trust me, it's okay. And it's just like, just shut
Yeah.
up, dude.
just let it go.
Put the bourbon down
But yeah, in any event, this was really good.
yeah,
And
and
really,
just think this
really
is on
enjoyable.
TV in
Mhm. Oh,
yeah.
'87. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're gonna bounce forward a couple years. So this is Chi-Town Rumble from February of 1989, and this is Barry Windham defending the U.S. title against Lex Luger. I believe this is this is Barry Windham's, I think, last. If it's not his last match before he goes to the WWF in '89, it's his last televised match.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this either what that's accurate. I think this was either his last. It might be his last match because I think he was out.
He might have worked a
but
couple house shows, but like it's his last televised.
For sure, it was his last televised one.
Yeah.
Because he was leaving to go to the WWF. Was this like the Widowmaker gimmick that he did? I think that'd be the timeline.
Yeah, this is when it was it the Widowmaker or the Stalker or something like that.
No, Stalker was like was the 90s, like after like
Oh.
94, 95.
Okay. So is the Widowmaker the one where which one is where he was all in like he was like body painted?
That was the Night Stalker, I think.
That was Stalker.
Okay.
That was Stalker. Widowmaker was just like he was just looked like Barry Windham, but he had like a black leather vest on. But he was not in WWF long, like
No,
months.
and
I don't think he was there a full year.
I'd say his career paid a terrible price for that run too, because I feel like he never quite. He had brief, so I think in like '92 he was kind of recapturing it, but I think where he really got screwed was that '93. So there was a point where he had a knee injury, and they used like a corpse. Was it a tendon?
Yeah, he had a cadaver, like a
cadaver tendon.
Yeah, so and then he came back
implanted.
and he was working, I think, Muda for like a world, like in a big match, and like the cadaver tendon just like pretty much just disintegrated in his leg like mid match.
Yeah.
And but I feel like that '89 thing kind of really, because if you watch like the '87 stuff and even here in '89, like he just has so much momentum and he just never has that again because that '89 run just like kills him dead.
There's an argument that has been made by many people, and I actually agree with this, that in the late 80s, probably like around roughly 87, that Barry was, if you don't consider him best in the world, he was in like the top 5 of wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Worldwide, including Japan.
Mhm.
And I actually feel like I have seen, I'm not the Barry Windham expert, but I have seen enough of that time period to say like he's in the contention. Like he was on a different level in the late 80s, especially around like 87 or so. Like he was best. He was one of the best in the world.
Like if you've never seen like '87 Wyndham, like it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. It clicked on all cylinders, like the charisma, the promo skills, the in-ring was
the timing
level.
of his comebacks, like his offense, the way he utilizes it. It's just like he is just off the charts amazing. He's like in that Muda, like he's like the North American version of Muda. Is like when he is like on his A game, like there's almost no one better than him. But the problem is like his A game isn't always there because he is a bit lazy. But like I said, like he did have like the leg problems.
That was in the early 90s. The issues that he ran into before then is that he went to the WWF again in '89, and he wasn't there long because he got sidetracked by family drama, which was his father, Blackjack Mulligan.
Was Kendall
and
involved in that? Oh yeah, okay.
Yes, his brother Kendall Windham both got popped by the feds for counterfeiting money. And they, I don't know if they went to jail, but they were like, it was bad.
Because when Herb Abrams started the UWF, he announced Blackjack Mulligan was going to be his booker, and Blackjack Mulligan was in jail still from the
Oh
counterfeiting
man.
charges.
Anyway,
I
Barry
just find that so funny because like you're like, oh, when you say like, oh, his family got in legal trouble, like, oh, they probably did drugs or something. Like, no, they're counterfeiting money.
counterfeiters. Yeah. Anyway, he like basically took a sabbatical because he was like helping out his family with all
Yeah,
that.
and
But
I saw some YouTube video. I didn't watch it, but like the thumbnail was implying that he was involved in the counterfeiting, and I do not believe he was involved in the counterfeiting.
I don't think I legitimately don't think he was at all. I think he was just trying to help his family. Got wrapped up in all that, and it did unfortunately affect his career.
And
Like,
he wouldn't have been in
he went
Florida at
back.
the time either.
Yeah, he went back to WCW. And I thought this 92, 93, he may have been, I don't know if he was back by 91, but 92,
Yeah, no,
93.
because we watched. He was. They won the titles, I think. I know he was there in '91 because he was
Yeah.
around when.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Halloween Havoc's when he got his arm busted up, I think, or the Clash of Champions after that is when he got his arm
So
busted.
he showed back up at least by 91. 92, 93, I think were strong with him. He actually was there into 94, but he had the knee injuries. And 94 is when, I mean, we could do shows on that in general, but like 94 is when things started getting weird.
They got
in
really
WCW
good, and then
because-
Hogan signed up, and it all went to crap.
Yeah.
And then we got a
Like, it got-
starcade of Hogan and
You still had
Beefcake.
some good stuff because 94 was when you had like Savage, Flair again, and that was heating things up.
Yeah, that's
But then Hogan came in and everything like changed.
because when people talk about the NWO, what doesn't get talked about because it doesn't fit like the WWE narrative is the NWO kind of landed on a promotion that had suddenly come alive because we watched the show like early NWO, and it was a promotion that was already hot because when they went back to Savage and Flair at the end of '95, like it ignited their house show business,
Yeah.
like to
Which-
levels they hadn't seen like in years.
Which let me take it a little bit full circle into talking about Savage like in Japan with Tenryu and everything like that. It's like why did Savage and Flair get hot again? Because like you basically had Savage revert back to like 80s Memphis, Florida, Southern style.
No, and
Savage
having Liz
going
turn,
up against Flair.
having Liz turn was a real novelty too. And I would
That's
say,
true, but
and I would say also for WCW, like Hogan, I think where his struggle was he was never like an NWA guy or a WCW guy, but Savage. Now he might have been a WWE guy, and you might have like associated him with that, but he could be like a WCW guy, like from his work.
he could
and
absolutely
he had that-
work that style.
he had that
Yeah,
harder edge
absolutely.
that like Southern fans wanted. Like he just was more of a WCW guy.
Yeah.
Savage could basically fit in anywhere.
Yep.
Was the thing.
Absolutely. But anyway, 94, 95, WCW got weird. Barry was into 94. He had the injuries. But by 94, he like left, went back to WWF, obviously.
New
Did the Stalker
Blackjacks.
gimmick. Yeah, Stalker gimmick wasn't good. Then he did the Blackjacks with Bradshaw, John Bradshaw Layfield.
Was he? What was he? Was he just Barry Windham when they did like the NWA crap?
Yeah.
Rap is crap, and they.
No,
No. When they did the NWA angle and
NWA invasion thing that had the new Midnight Express.
Oh, I don't
and
know.
Jeff Jarrett was the North American champion. Yeah, he was just Barry Windham because I remember
did he have a belt
watching
during that?
that part I don't remember, but I remember watching. It was the night after something. I think it was probably the night after the Taker Kane Mania, whichever Mania that was at. That Taker has this big long entrance and this big elaborate ring gear and everything, and it comes out there, strips it all off, choke slams Tombstones to Barry Windham, and that's it. I remember that clearly.
Brad.
I wasn't enough on it because I was about. If you had paused long enough, I was going to ask if that was the night Kamada Wanalea danced atop the ECW arena.
Dance atop the ECW arena. Brad, you might know this, because I feel like Jarrett coming in, Rock and Roll's coming in. Heavenly Bodies were in the WWF then kind of around that time too.
Well,
But
they
the whole
were more when
NW
they were working, because the Rock and Roll Express had showed up in like '94 because they were working with Smoky Mountain, because that's when
yeah.
like
Well,
Taker worked down there and stuff too.
that's my question because I feel like the Jim Cornette coming in was a little bit like kind of trying to get synergy with Smoky Mountain / like Smoky Mountain was dying, so it's like he's moving on. But did Barry ever do any Smoky Mountain shots?
That I don't know. If he did like one or two.
Because I know we saw guys like Eaton do. I think Eaton did some stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
or
no, we watched
Arn.
because the was it Bluegrass Sprawl?
Yeah.
Remember
Mhm.
Eaton was in that big clusterfuck because
Yeah.
like there was all this carnage around and his like pants were falling down. He got like a tire stuffed on his head and he was just doing comedy in the middle of this like hardcore like brawl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Mhm.
I still respect that about his performance in that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he did a couple shots because Arn did. Remember, they did that big angle because Arn was in this match too, where they had him come out in the blanket and Cornette's like, "Well, who's this?" He's like poking him with the racket, and he looks under the sheet, and he pretty much just faints like a fainting goat, and then they reveal it's Arn Anderson.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He might have done a shot or two, but I'm not sure. But he also had the weirdest. Like he shows up in WCW in like '98, '99, and he kind of has like a career resurgence because he had that really underrated team with like Kurt Hennig, but like he kind of was like trying.
No, he actually again because this was the period when it really went off the rails for WCW. But
Oh, way off.
he had a couple more. He had a couple tag title wins. Like I think he won it with Kurt Hennig,
And he won it
and then I
with
think
Kendall.
he briefly won it with Kendall. And then it all went off the rails. I've never seen. I've talked about. I feel like I've mentioned this to you guys before. I've never seen a single minute of footage, but after WCW basically folded or was going to fold, like around the 2000, 2001 or something like that, Dusty Rhodes did his own independent promotion, Turnbuckle. I think Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling.
I remember hearing about
I have
it.
a couple. I
Yeah.
have a couple of those shows saved up somewhere. I've wanted to do them,
Okay.
and I also have a couple of matches of Shawn Michaels thing because I have stuff that I want to do eventually, but everything. But there's stuff with Bryan Danielson as American Dragon with his mask.
That's very early on.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's like 98, 99 Danielson.
So I had never seen anything of Turnbuckle, and I think Turnbuckle only ran for like maybe a couple years. But
Oh, I don't even
I
think
had
that.
heard years ago. I had heard that because Barry was like the world champion or became one of the world champions, and I had heard. I haven't seen it, so I can't verify it myself. But I had heard that he had that was really like his last run of anything. Really.
He was in that.
I heard.
He was in that. When WCW closed, there was that string of, "Oh, this is going to replace WCW," and the first real one of that was MECW, which was Main Event Championship Wrestling, and they ran.
Wasn't that based out of Evansville, Indiana?
I think they ran it from the ECW arena.
Okay, I'm
But-
maybe thinking of a different one then.
But so Main Event Championship Wrestling got a lot of hype in that summer of like 2001, and they were gonna try and be the next WCW, and they ran a single show, and then the promoter ran off with all the money. But Barry Windham worked on that show.
Anyway, about Turnbuckle, he was like the world champion for a while. I had heard he had another career resurgence and that he was putting on like really good matches, but I haven't seen them to verify if that was true or not. But
I could look around. I think I've seen a couple of their shows. But this is an interesting match. So this is kind of a little backstory, but like they kind of botched the booking. But so in Clash of the Champions 1, they beat Arn and Tully for the tag titles, and then Barry Windham pretty much immediately turns on Lex. So this is kind of the blow off to that like a year later. That's kind of like where we're going here. But I've mentioned this match on the show a lot of times because it's very unique in the sense that, so what happens here is Barry's playing the heel, But early in the match, he pretty much misses like a charge and like punches the turnbuckle and fucks his hand up.
Oh
And
yeah.
what's awesome about this is Barry's entire offense is an iron claw and like the superplex, but it all relies on this hand that he pretty much just broke. So
Yeah.
this match turns into Barry Windham's in control, but he can't put it away because he screwed like his dominant hand up and he's trying to work around that and put Luger away.
And he just cannot do it.
And
I loved it.
This was a great match. I want to add a couple things before getting to like the hand thing. Is that one? This was maybe at his zenith, but Lex Luger comes into this fucking over. Like the crowd is insane for Lex Luger, and Lex Luger is hot for the crowd is hot for him.
this is like 2 months after Starrcade '88.
Yeah. We could talk about Luger. We've mentioned Luger at the very beginning of the show, talking about him with DDP, but
89's probably Luger's like best year because after this he
probably
goes
is his
heel,
best year.
and he just goes absolutely ape shit and is just awesome. Like,
Yeah,
it's one of the best promos ever.
Yeah, this is where you need to file this in the folder that is brightly labeled Lex Luger was actually a good worker, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. Like, put that in that folder, because this is an example of that match. I actually, watching this very early on, a couple of his selling, I thought to me, like, there's two things that's like, maybe this is why people think he wasn't a good worker. One, sometimes he's not as a flashy, dynamic worker.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's a bad worker. But sometimes it's like, he's a power guy. It's like, sometimes it's not always like the flashy move. So maybe that's why people want more flash from him. But the other thing is that sometimes when he sells, and there was a couple spots in this with Barry, he sells, and he sells almost like awkwardly, where it's like Barry's gonna like punch him in like the bread basket in the mid session. He'd be like, and then like grab, and then like fall, and it looks a little bit awkward.
I don't
hate, like, oh, he's a bad worker, he can't sell, and it's like, no, he is selling. He's actually doing good. He maybe added like falling down when he didn't need to, and that makes it the appearance like, oh, he wasn't a good worker, but he actually was a good fucking worker.
Well, you know where I thought what's really underrated about his performance in this is he does a really good job of just getting the fuck out of the way so Barry can really sell the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he took that superplex like a champ too.
Yeah. There's in the course of this, and Matt, I don't actually have a problem with that sell job. You know, he takes that hard shot to the gut and he bends over and then drops back. It's like, I don't have a problem with that. That's putting more emphasis on where he initially got hit before he went down. I did stuff like that a few times myself, but it's the biggest complaint I would ever have about Luger selling is there are times where when he's supposed to be selling, he's in pain, and instead what he's doing makes him look tired. You know, like he's caught in a figure four, and he's trying to fight out of it, and everybody's on his side. And instead of being like, he's like, and I'm like, you look like you want to take a nap there, bro. But, you know, Luger's good in this, and anybody who says that Lex Luger couldn't work,
they're wrong.
They're wrong.
I've seen enough data at this point. The second thing I actually wanted to mention quickly that I really liked about this was Jim Ross on commentary. He was doing commentary with Magnum TA. And I've said this on the show before. I maintain this. Anyone who's like, oh, Jim Ross, like his peak was the Attitude Era. It's like, no, he was actually past his peak. His peak was late 80s, very early 90s WCW.
I would say
that was his peak.
I would say
he made everything better. Like in this, his commentary in this, like when he gets excited about shit, it's like, to me, it elevates the match. Like as soon as he starts getting excited about a near fall or even a false finish, I'm like, I start sitting up. I'm like, Like I listen, I'm like, oh man,
Mhm.
like I get so involved in the emotion of this.
I'd say like 85 to 94 is like his peak years because like his UWF stuff is like really strong, and I
Yeah.
even think like when we watch some of that early WWF stuff, like he was really good in that early WWF stuff when they weren't trying to
Mm.
hamper him with their nonsense and like you know Heaton was struggling with him a bit because Jim Ross would like give it back to him a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
The only thing that I pick on about Jim Ross in this time period is it's just like, dude, shut up about the football. I
Oh,
don't
Yeah.
give a shit.
he
Okay.
mentioned. Did you
He
catch
did.
it? He had to talk about how both Barry and Lex were like college football players.
He literally said it's the story of an offensive tackle versus an oversized wide receiver, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
That's funny.
So
Yeah.
I did the one thing I didn't like though, and they actually did this finish twice on this show, which is just because they did it in the microtendon the very so they did the thing where they kind of like do the suplex thing and both of their shoulders are down, and one of
Yeah.
them
German
just gets
suplex.
one of them just gets their
Lex
shoulder
Luger like lifts.
yeah, which is the one of them has to win, but we have to make sure that no one actually gets anything out of winning this match whatsoever, which is what they did here.
Well, I would say that in this match, it kind of fit because Wyndham is throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Luger, and he just can't put him away. And so he finally goes for this big thing, and he gets beat by, he's trying everything, and it doesn't work, and he loses. Like I don't feel like it didn't elevate Luger, but the story was that Wyndham couldn't win. Is what my takeaway was.
Yeah.
I didn't like the finish per se because I don't like the one person gets their shoulder up in a German. I don't like that spot. But in the context of things, it was Luger outsmarting Barry Windham. But then I also didn't like that like Barry immediately got his heat back because he was like beating down Wyndham for winning, like sore loser.
Yeah.
But then he was gone, so it's like, but.
I don't know if they knew he was leaving, so I don't know on that front.
But a thing I did like about this, because again, we kind of glossed over it a little bit, but like Wyndham did injure the hand, so he was selling the hand throughout the entire match. I don't know that he bladed the hand, but they made a big point on commentary to note like, oh, the hand is bleeding.
No, there's some blood on the hand, I think,
there was, but I don't know if he like gigged or what.
Gimmicked it.
Yeah. But he was selling it like it was hurting him, and he did. One thing I did like on commentary, because I didn't think he was necessarily like the best on commentary. He's certainly not the worst I've heard.
He was,
but
this
Magnum
was only
TA
like he'd only been doing it like okay, I'm trying to remember. So the year started off. It was Jim Ross and Tony. So Tony like mid January or late January jumps to WWE, so they would have had this would have been like week 3 or 4 of like Magnum doing it, because then he doesn't last very long, so then they switch to this like they do this big shakeup in I think March, and then it becomes Ross and Hayes on World Championship Wrestling. Then it's like Soley and Kevin Sullivan on Pro, and then it's like Lance Russell and someone on Worldwide, I think. Maybe Lance was on Pro, and then Soley and Sullivan were on Worldwide. I've watched all this recently, so that's why I know all this stuff.
Yeah. I thought Magnum was fine. But one thing he did do, which I thought it was interesting, is that, Barry did injure the hand. He's selling the hand. And then at one point, like the hand is injured, but he still applies like the Iron Claw.
Yeah.
To Lex. And what I liked that Magnum did is that Magnum explains like, oh, Barry has injured the hand. He must know he's in trouble because he's pulling out like his like primary weapon to try and put Luger away as quickly as he possibly could because Barry knows he's in trouble. He's gonna like bust out all the stops right now,
Yeah.
try and put Lex away, and it doesn't work. But I actually liked like that bit of commentary. It's like, oh, like, I mean, again, we're watching this like 30 plus years after the fact, like 35, 36, almost 36 years after the fact. So we don't have the contemporaneous context. So getting that psychology where it's like, this is this dude's move, the Iron Claw, but he injured his hand, but he has to try and put away this guy. It's like he conveyed all of that in like 20 seconds,
It's a very
that's
good. It's a very good narrative match. Like it's very strong narrative, and they don't like. They work a match and keep the narrative really strong, but like it's very unique, and like I don't think I've ever seen a match quite with this approach ever again.
I have seen one that was similar, and that was the Open Challenge debut of Darby Allin versus Cody Rhodes for the TNT title. Because what does Darby do through that whole thing is he just starts attacking Cody's hand. He attacks that right hand that Cody used for everything, and so Cody's having a harder and harder time getting away with stuff, and Darby's just savaging it. So it's not the exact same thing, but it's the most similar one I can think of.
But yeah, I picked this one especially. Well, I like this match, but I wanted Shad to see this one because I thought he would find the handwork to be kind of fascinating.
I really like it.
I picked the tag out for you too because I thought you would appreciate the
Dude,
tag.
I love good tag wrestling.
But I thought this was a strong slate of matches. Like Barry Windham really shined through in everything.
Yeah. It shows that there's a reason that Windham had the reputation that he did. Like the guy's got, the guy had chops, and there's no question about that.
Just so effortless.
He just doesn't get. It feels to me like he does not get the credit for that a lot of people seem to get. So
I think it's because like it's so sporadic, and like a lot of it's in like his really great stuff is like 87 and 86 and 88 and stuff, and I think people just haven't sat down, like, because I think there's a lot of fans, especially now, like if you really want to watch like the Wyndham and Flair matches, like they're gonna be long, like they're gonna be good, like I said, like that 45-minute match, like that was like nothing to get through. And sometimes like anything over a half hour can really start to grate on me, but that one was just like easy watch.
Yeah, it's you do need to block out the time for it.
Yeah, and I just think there's a lot of fans, especially now, like a lot of current fans just don't put the effort in to watching stuff, especially if it's longer. Which sucks because it's so easy to find, like we've done this show for what, 6 years now, and we've watched a lot of it on YouTube.
I would say there's a lot of modern fans that won't watch longer stuff unless they will.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you have to decide you're going to do it. But
yeah, and 45 minutes is a lot for a single match.
Yeah.
Like you have to be.
Yeah, it is a lot to ask for.
And there's a lot of matches that go long that are terrible.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for this week. I had a lot of fun with these. Like this was a fun little slate of matches, all very different in their own ways too.
Yeah, 100%.
So that is it for this week. Do you guys have anything you want to mention before we go for the day?
I want to just bring this up because I actually many years ago listened to like a Barry Windham shoot that he did probably like early 2000s. So this is a 20-year-old, 20-plus-year-old shoot he did. Mm-hmm. And I actually was really, I love the shoot that he did. I have it saved somewhere, like hard drive or something. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really, he actually came off very humble.
Yeah.
And the thing that actually struck me about that interview is at the end of the interview, talking for 2 hours about his career or matches he did, whatever. He was asked the question. It's like, and it's almost like a gotcha question because it's like, you know how these shoots were back in the day. It's like, oh, talk shit about like your former coworkers, whatever. But the question was like, who do you think in your career, like, because at this point, like it was probably like you're talking about like a 20, 25-year career for him. Like he was asked the question, like, who do you think didn't live up to their potential that you interacted with, like other workers who didn't live up, in your opinion, didn't live up to their potential?
Mm-hmm.
And he paused for a moment. He's like, me, like I didn't live up to my potential. And he didn't say that like bitterness. He said honestly, he was candid. He's like, you know, I thought I was talented. I made some career choices, and he even brought up like the '89, like dealing with his family, etc.
Yeah.
And he said like, yeah, I made some career choices. Like I made choices in my career that I did not think like were the right choices. I did them for reasons I thought were valid at the time, but I felt I could have reached higher levels than I did, and I didn't, and I had to, make peace with that. And it was like I listened to that, and I was like, damn, like that's a lot of like maturity and self-reflection that this man has thought about this and has had to come to terms with it. And I'm sure at this point he's made peace with it, but I mean that it was fascinating because he was, again, at one point you could say without much argument, you could argue this man was one of the best in the world, hands down, easily top 5, and is a legend. Like at the end of the day, like he's probably like, I think pushing 70 now, maybe.
Yeah.
Like when it's all said and done, like when God, I hope he has a long life ahead of him still, but when this man, passes on, like we are going to talk about, like this man was one of the best workers, certainly the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Legit. So
he is 64.
He's 64. Okay.
And
he's younger than I thought he was.
He debuted in 79. Because, like, if you just as a weird side thing, so I had watched a bunch of Mid-Atlantic on WWE Network, and he was there with black hair as Black Jack Mulligan Jr.
Wait. I have to ask a question now. What year was that first match again?
86.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because
I thought it was like 81, and I was going to be livid.
He was Black Jack Mulligan Jr. in like 81. I think we watched a match with him. I think we watched Slaughter beat him up in a match or something. That might have been Jake.
I think he started like 79.
79, yeah,
so.
I looked it up. So
yeah,
because he probably started in Florida, then he went to like Mid-Atlantic, then went back to Florida. Because I know like 83, 84, I think he's a big Florida part, and then he goes to WWE, and then he leaves, and he does like a couple shots for the AWA, then goes back to Florida, then pops up in Crockett, and then he goes to like when Dusty leaves. No, he doesn't go straight to WWE because he goes to that Dusty like PWF thing when he like gets fired and does like that Florida revival until WWE signs him. So I think he did that for a couple months and then went to WWE.
Okay.
I know way too much about this shit.
I think we could. There could be an argument made that we all do, but that's okay.
He's a treat. I love Windham. Like he is like when he's like on his A game, there's like no one quite like him.
Everybody is a nerd about something.
Yeah.
It's just, what are you a nerd about?
Well, that is it for this week. We'll catch you next week. I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll find something interesting to dig into. So thank you for joining us as always, and we will catch you